Chapter 1981. Chu Fengmian didn't let go of anything that could be devoured by the sky-devouring secret technique. He had already formed an irreconcilable grudge with the Sea Sacrifice sect by sneaking into the sect this time. There was no need to show mercy now. He would devour as much as he could. Chu Fengmian felt that the sky-devouring secret technique had devoured about 30% of the colored glaze clean water in the lake in a short time. As the water level of the lake dropped, Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. Suddenly, he saw a palace appear in the colored glaze clean water. The palace was hidden under the colored glaze clean water. It was concealed by the power of the colored glaze clean water, so Chu Fengmian didn't notice it just now. As the sky-devouring secret technique devoured a large amount of colored glaze clean water, the water level of the lake dropped. Only then did Chu Fengmian notice that there was a palace hidden under the colored glaze clean water. Let's go and have a look. Chu Fengmian also knew that the palace hidden under the colored glaze clean water was definitely something good. He continued to activate the sky-devouring secret technique to devour the colored glaze clean water. At the same time, he had already transformed into his human form and arrived in front of the palace. Chu Fengmian walked over. There were no restrictions or arrays in the palace. Chu Fengmian looked around and found that there was no danger. Then, he stepped into the palace. As soon as he entered the palace, Chu Fengmian smelled an incomparably pure medicinal aroma. The medicinal aroma was so strong that Chu Fengmian couldn't tell what kind of elixir it belonged to. The medicinal aroma of ancient grade, middle grade, and even ancient grade sacred elixirs were mixed together. Chu Fengmian tried to distinguish them and identified thousands of medicinal aroma. Almost all of them were of ancient sacred elixir grade. Even the medicinal aroma of ancient sacred elixir was not a small number. What is this place? Chu Fengmian couldn't help but feel shocked. He walked into the depths of the palace and saw countless jade bottles floating in the air. Each of these jade bottles was filled with sacred elixirs. Such jade bottles floated in the depths of the palace, like countless stars in the sky. Is this the treasury of the Sea Sacrifice sect? The treasury in charge of storing elixirs? Chu Fengmian was overjoyed to see this scene. Chu Fengmian could see that there were tens of thousands of jade bottles here. Each bottle was filled with all kinds of sacred elixirs. The number of sacred elixirs in the palace was much more than what Chu Fengmian had seen in his life. Chu Fengmian couldn't tell what kind of sacred elixir pills there were, but most of them were ancient sacred elixir pills above the ancient sacred elixir pills. At a glance, there were more than 100,000 sacred elixirs. More sacred elixirs could be compared to the ocean 6 water turned. An ocean sacred elixir was even more than the oceans, not be ocean, the ocean. 2 sa was even more. Was the ocean. He was. These was. 1. A was. 1 was. It was used to stabilize one's realm. It's very useful to me. Chu Fengmian grabbed the first jade bottle. He recognized the origin of the sacred elixir in it at a glance. It was an ancient sacred elixir, Jianwang sacred elixir. The recipe for this sacred elixir had long been lost in the 9 regions. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had seen it. There were more than a dozen profound flower saint elixirs in the jade bottle. Once Chu Fengmian refined these profound flower saint elixirs, they could help Chu Fengmian stabilize his realm and increase his strength. Chu Fengmian had just broken through and his realm was unstable. He needed sacred elixirs like the Jianwang sacred elixir to stabilize his realm. However, Chu Fengmian took a look and found that the elixir's potency had been depleted. It was only about 70%. It seemed that the Jianwang sacred elixir was not refined by the Sea Sacrifice sect, but by the sect's experts. They found some ancient cave ruins and got it from them. However, Even 70% Jianwang sacred elixir was very useful to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian took the Jianwang sacred elixir and condensed spiritual power in his palm. He broke the seal on it and directly grabbed the Jianwang sacred elixir into the empty ring. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also urged his spiritual power. Behind him, waves of spiritual power turned into dragon claws to help Chu Fengmian absorb the sacred elixir. There were 9 dragon claws. This was the limit of Chu Fengmian's power. The restrictive spells on these divine elixirs were almost all set up by celestial realm experts. Although most of these restrictive spells were set up to protect the efficacy of the divine elixirs from dissipating, it was not easy to break them. Chu Fengmian could condense 9 dragon claws at the same time to help Chu Fengmian absorb the sacred elixir. This was already the limit. 9 dragon claws crazily absorbed the sacred elixirs from the palace. One by one, the jade bottles were taken over. Chu Fengmian broke the seal and put them all into the empty ring. Jianwang sacred elixir. An ancient sacred elixir for refining the body. Good stuff. Take it. Underworld sacred elixir. Ancient sacred elixir. Just one was enough to bring the dead back to life. Reconstruct the body. Good stuff. Take it. Berserk demonic elixir. Take it. Reverse golden elixir. Take it. Chu Fengmian crazily collected the sacred elixirs in the palace. The harvest of these sacred elixirs was much more than the glazed clean water that Chu Fengmian had plundered. Ancient sacred elixirs and ancient sacred elixirs were now difficult to buy outside, no matter how rich one was. But now, in this palace, Chu Fengmian could collect a large number of high-quality sacred elixirs at any time. This made Chu Fengmian want to uproot the palace and collect them one by one. However, Chu Fengmian quickly dismissed this idea. Although there were no restrictions or arrays on the palace, it was connected to the sacrificial lake. Unless Chu Fengmian moved the entire sacrificial lake, it was impossible to move the palace directly. As for moving the huge sacrificial lake, Chu Fengmian did not have the ability to do so. Even celestial realm experts did not have the ability to do so. After all, the sacrificial lake was the sacred place and core of the sea sacrifice sect. If it could be moved so easily, it would not be worthy of being called a sacred place. Chu Fengmian could only take as many sacred elixirs as he could. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1982. Chu Fengmian no longer cared about the specific efficacy of the sacred elixirs. He would take as many bottles as he could. Chu Fengmian also knew that someone would come soon if he plundered a large amount of the sacred elixirs in the sacrificial lake. Boom! Just as Chu Fengmian was absorbing the sacred elixirs, a powerful force suddenly came from the edge of the sacrificial lake. An expert had come to the sacrificial lake. Following that, 2 more forces descended at the same time. The 3 ancestors of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, who were in charge of guarding the temple, had rushed back. When the 3 ancestors of the Sea Sacrificial Sect arrived at the sacrificial lake, they immediately saw that the center of the sacrificial lake was already half devoured by the heaven-devouring secret technique. When they saw this scene, the 3 ancestors of the Oceanite sect almost fainted. Even a celestial realm expert couldn't bear such a blow. The glazed aqua in the sacrificial lake had been accumulated by the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, half of it had been plundered. How could they not go crazy? Damn it! Lan Ming is too audacious. He's crazy. How dare he rob the sacrificial lake? Where's Lan Ming? Why isn't he here? No, the treasury. Lan Ming went to the treasury. Suddenly, the 3 of them sensed Chu Fengmian's location and flew toward the center of the sacrificial lake. Others didn't know what was hidden in the center of the sacrificial lake, but the 3 of them were in charge of guarding the sacrificial lake. Of course, they knew that the center of the sacrificial lake was the treasury of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect. That was why the sacrificial lake was so heavily guarded. They didn't expect Chu Fengmian to discover it by accident. The loss of the glazed aqua wasn't a big deal, but the treasury was a treasure that the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect had accumulated for hundreds of thousands of years. It couldn't be plundered. 3 celestial realm experts are coming together. Chu Fengmian, who was in the palace, also sensed that the 3 terrifying auras were coming. The 3 ancestors of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, 3 celestial realm experts, chased after Chu Fengmian at the same time. I can't plunder anymore. Chu Fengmian looked at the countless divine elixir pills in the palace and felt pity. Although Chu Fengmian tried his best to plunder, he only managed to take away less than 1/10 of the saint elixir pills in the palace. The remaining 9/10 were still in the palace. However, Chu Fengmian now understood that he couldn't continue plundering. With 3 celestial realm experts joining forces, Chu Fengmian could only think of ways to escape. There was no possibility of fighting back at all. Finally, I'll plunder a batch of holy elixirs. In an instant, Chu Fengmian scanned the countless divine elixirs in the palace and noticed the 9 jade bottles with the strongest medicinal efficacy. Behind Chu Fengmian, the 9 dragon claws grabbed the 9 jade bottles and put them into the empty ring. These 9 jade bottles contained the 9 highest quality ancient sacred pills in this palace. After collecting them, Chu Fengmian did not hesitate to disperse the sky-devouring secret skill and the 9 dragon claws. He gathered all his strength and flew out of the palace. Almost in an instant, Chu Fengmian had left the palace. Chu Fengmian looked at the bottom of the azure clear water lake. In addition to this palace, there were 7 other different palaces. There were a total of 8 palaces, all of which were the treasures of the Sea Sacrifice sect. In the palace that Chu Fengmian had just plundered, there were only divine elixir pills. It should be the palace that stored the divine elixir pills. The rest of the palaces were the palaces that stored spiritual weapons, materials, and all kinds of strange things. Chu Fengmian glanced at these palaces and had a feeling that if he could plunder all 8 of them in one go, these resources would be enough for him to break through the half-step celestial realm, cross the celestial tribulation, and become an immortal. Of course, Chu Fengmian could only imagine this idea. He didn't have so much time to plunder all the palaces. It was already a great opportunity to plunder a batch of divine elixir pills. If Chu Fengmian stayed, it would be difficult for him to escape. The sacrificial lake was the center of the Sea Sacrifice sect. Chu Fengmian's wanton plundering of the sacrificial lake didn't just alarm the 3 patriarchs who were in charge of guarding the lake. It was likely that even more patriarchs in the Sea Sacrifice sect, including the ancient Emperor Sea Sacrifice, would be alerted and would come to hunt him down. By then, no matter how much Chu Fengmian had plundered, he wouldn't be alive to spend it. The harvest from this time's dive into the sacrificial lake was far beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. Not only did he get a lot of azure clear water, but he also found the treasury of the Sea Sacrifice sect and plundered a lot of divine elixir pills. If Chu Fengmian refined all of these divine elixir pills, his strength would be enough to rise to a completely different level. It was even possible for him to reach the peak of the half-step celestial realm. Let's go. Chu Fengmian's figure flickered again and again as the escape light was pushed to the extreme. After leaving the palace, Chu Fengmian flew directly to the edge of the sacrificial lake, ready to leave the temple and escape the Sea Sacrifice sect. The 3 ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect also rushed over at this time. They looked at Chu Fengmian and said with an extremely angry face, "Lan Ming, you bastard! Our Sea Sacrifice sect painstakingly cultivated you to become the Ocean Emperor of the generation. How dare you rob the sacrificial lake? Is this bastard trying to escape? Stop him!" The 3 ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect looked at Chu Fengmian's escape light and attacked at the same time. The 3 celestial realm experts attacked at the same time. Their power condensed together and condensed the water's spiritual power. Suddenly, the surrounding space was frozen. It was somewhat like the power of Jianwang transformation to seal the space. The entire sacrificial lake was completely sealed and turned into a trap. The three celestial realm experts joined forces and could seal the space at will. Even the celestial realm experts couldn't escape. After sealing the space, the three celestial realm experts rushed toward Chu Fengmian, bombarding him with waves of spiritual power. These waves of spiritual power were not killing moves, but a means of suppression. The three of them joined forces to perform a secret technique and suppressed Chu Fengmian. In their opinion, even if Lan Ming had stepped into the celestial realm, he couldn't escape the sacrificial lake today. As long as they subdued Lan Ming, the loss of the sacrificial lake could be recovered. If they killed Lan Ming and the sacrificial lake fought to the death, the loss of the sacrificial lake would be even greater. For the three ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect guarding the sacrificial lake, recovering the loss of the sacrificial lake was much more important than killing Lan Ming. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1983. Chu Fengmian had also noticed this. The three patriarchs guarding the sacrificial lake didn't attack with killing moves, but with the intention of suppressing him. After all, from their point of view, they were three celestial realm experts working together to deal with Chu Fengmian. No matter how powerful Chu Fengmian was, it was impossible for him to escape from their joint attack. However, the three ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect had never imagined that the Lan Ming before them was actually Chu Fengmian in disguise. The three patriarchs had sealed the space around the sacrificial lake. It was indeed difficult for a celestial realm expert to break through. But for Chu Fengmian, who had fused with progenitor Tianlong's Genesis Qi and controlled the origin of space, the sealed space was no different from a piece of paper in his eyes. If the three patriarchs used their killing moves together, it would be very difficult for Chu Fengmian to resist. But now, the three of them wanted to suppress him, which greatly reduced the pressure on Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was now a half-step celestial realm expert. He wasn't inferior to a celestial realm expert. Although he couldn't fight 1 against 3, the three didn't want to kill him, so the pressure on Chu Fengmian wasn't that great. It was far more difficult to suppress a martial artist of the same level than to kill him. The three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect attacked in unison. Waves of spiritual power transformed into chains that wrapped around Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian sneered and suddenly erupted with the power of the Black Whale's bloodline. Combined with progenitor Tianlong's bloodline, he blasted out a punch. The power of this punch contained the power of progenitor Tianlong and the Black Whale. It was the Dragon Whale Sea-Splitting Fist that Chu Fengmian had once created. The Dragon Whale Sea-Splitting Fist was originally a fist technique that Chu Fengmian had created to hide his identity. It wasn't a particularly powerful fist technique. But now that Chu Fengmian had obtained the Black Whale's bloodline, the Dragon Whale Sea-Splitting Fist, he blasted out again combined the power of progenitor Tianlong and the Black Whale. The power of this punch was close to that of an immortal art. With a single punch, the countless chains that were trying to entangle Chu Fengmian were all shattered by the punch. After resolving the entanglement of those chains, Chu Fengmian flew all the way out of the sacrificial lake. What kind of fist technique is that? The power of the Dragon Whale? When did Lan Ming learn such a powerful fist technique? The three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect stared at Chu Fengmian's Dragon Whale Sea-Splitting Fist in astonishment, as if they had never seen such a fist technique before. It looks like Lan Ming has been hiding his strength for a long time. He might have joined the Sea Sacrificial sect to sneak into the sacrificial lake. This Lan Ming is so well hidden. Don't waste your breath here. Capture him and torture him. I don't believe that he won't spill everything. As the three Sea Sacrifice sect patriarchs conversed, their figures flickered as they chased after Chu Fengmian. However, even though the three of them were chasing Chu Fengmian, they were unable to get close to him. Instead, they were getting further and further away from him. What's going on? How could Lan Ming be so fast? I feel that he hasn't stepped into the celestial realm yet. How could he be so fast? The guardian elder said in astonishment as he watched Chu Fengmian's escape light getting further and further away. He was a celestial realm powerhouse, yet he couldn't catch up with Chu Fengmian. Don't worry, we have sealed off the sacrificial lake. Lan Ming can't escape even if he has great abilities, another forefather of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect said coldly. Hearing this, the other two forefathers were also relieved. The sacrificial lake was sealed off. No matter how fast Chu Fengmian's escape light was, he couldn't escape. However, their thoughts were completely in vain. Chu Fengmian's escape light came all the way to the edge of the sacrificial lake. When he was about to leave the sacrificial lake, he was stopped by a force. The three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect had just joined forces and laid down layers of seals, sealing off the space of the sacrificial lake so that no one could leave. However, Chu Fengmian only glanced at the blocking force and suddenly attacked. Break! The word break came out from Chu Fengmian's mouth. All of a sudden, the layers of sealed space in front of Chu Fengmian started to shake. Many of the sealed space in front of Chu Fengmian were shattered. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and blasted out a palm strike. Boom! Chu Fengmian's figure did not hesitate at all as he flew out of the temple. The space that was heavily sealed was breached by this palm. The layers of seals jointly laid out by the three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect, three celestial realm powerhouses, were broken by Chu Fengmian with a wave of his hand. This was beyond everyone's imagination. The three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect who were chasing Chu Fengmian widened their eyes when they saw this scene. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. How is this possible? How could Lan Ming break our seal? No, with such strength, this person can't be Lan Ming. This Lan Ming is fake. Someone pretended to be him and sneaked into the sacrificial lake. The three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect suddenly reacted when they saw this scene. This kind of strength wasn't something Lan Ming could achieve. Even if Lan Ming had truly stepped into the celestial realm, he wouldn't be able to tear apart the space sealed by the three celestial realm powerhouses. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had torn apart the space so easily. Damn it! Someone actually sneaked into the sacrificial lake. Hurry up and inform the Oceanic Sacrifice Emperor. The three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect were infuriated when they realized that this Lan Ming was fake. Someone had pretended to be Lan Ming and sneaked into the sacrificial lake right under their noses. This person simply didn't take them seriously. If news of this spread, the three of them would become the laughingstock of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect. In particular, if Chu Fengmian escaped today, they would become the laughingstock of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect. Chase. This person can't have escaped far. Even if he escapes the temple, he can't escape the Oceanic Sacrifice sect. After the three forefathers of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect passed on the message, they continued to chase in the direction Chu Fengmian had escaped without stopping. Chu Fengmian had already used the sky-devouring secret technique to whittle away more than 90% of the power of the various restrictions in the temple. Now they were extremely fragile. Chu Fengmian left the sacrificial lake and immediately flew out of the sacrificial lake. Along the way, Chu Fengmian used the sky-devouring secret technique to break all the restrictions and array formations in an instant. Chapter 1984. Chu Fengmian used the sky-devouring secret technique to destroy the countless restrictions and arrays in the temple. Chu Fengmian's escape light flew all the way out of the temple, almost unhindered. In particular, the three ancestors of the Sea Sacrificial sect who had been chasing Chu Fengmian were left far behind and would not be able to catch up in a short period of time. Although Chu Fengmian was now in the half-step celestial being realm, in terms of the speed of escape light, Chu Fengmian, who had mastered the way of space, was much faster than the escape light of a true celestial being realm expert. Soon, Chu Fengmian had already arrived outside the temple. After leaving the temple and the Sea Sacrificial sect, Chu Fengmian could truly escape with his life. The Songhai star system was so vast that no matter where Chu Fengmian hid, it would be difficult to find him. No matter how many powerhouses there were in the Sea Sacrificial sect, it would be impossible to find Chu Fengmian. Not to mention, Chu Fengmian had already obtained the glazed clean water. Chu Fengmian's final goal in coming to the vast sea star field had been accomplished. Chu Fengmian could simply leave the vast sea star field and return to the Daluotian star field. Oh? Someone is really bold to sneak into the sacrificial lake to steal the treasure. Interesting. Since you're here, don't leave. Stay. Just as Chu Fengmian's light was about to leave the temple, a wave of power suddenly descended from the sky. This wave of power transformed into an ancient trident that stabbed straight at Chu Fengmian. Vaguely, the power of heaven and earth condensed under the trident and pressed down together, making it difficult to dodge. Another celestial realm powerhouse. Chu Fengmian was shocked when he felt the power of the trident. So soon, another celestial realm powerhouse had arrived. The power of this trident was the true power of the immortal technique. It came down from the sky, and its power was extremely tyrannical. If it had been Chu Fengmian in the realm of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, he would have been seriously injured, if not killed. But now, Chu Fengmian had stepped into the half-step celestial realm. His strength was no different from a celestial realm expert. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, even the celestial realm expert's celestial art was just an ordinary martial skill. Sword out. Greed. Chu Fengmian didn't dodge at all. Seeing the trident coming down, a sword light flew out from the world's edge sword box behind Chu Fengmian. The ancestral dragon supreme sword was immediately unsheathed and held in Chu Fengmian's hand. In an instant, the power of the stars descended and condensed on the sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. A ray of starlight sword chi immediately slashed into the sky and collided with the trident. Many of Chu Fengmian's sword arts were immortal arts. For example, the 9 forms of the progenitor and the 9 profound immortal arts had transformed into sword arts that surpassed thousands of immortal arts. They were extremely powerful moves among immortal arts. Previously, Chu Fengmian's realm was too low to display the true power of these sword arts. Now that he had stepped into the celestial realm, he could display the true power of these sword arts. This was the first form of the 9 profound immortal arts, the greed. The starlight sword chi soared into the sky and collided with the trident, breaking it directly. Interesting. A half-step celestial realm expert actually has such strength? After the trident was broken, a young man suddenly appeared. He was holding an ancient trident in his hand, which was very similar to the trident that had just descended. The trident that had just slashed at Chu Fengmian was the shadow of the trident in the young man's hand. The trident contained a kind of immortal power. An immortal weapon. A true immortal weapon. The trident was a true immortal weapon, not a half-step immortal weapon. It was a true immortal weapon. Of course, it wasn't the real Extreme Dao immortal weapon. The Extreme Dao immortal weapon was a supreme existence among the immortal weapons. Only the most powerful immortal weapons could be called Extreme Dao immortal weapons. However, an immortal weapon surpassed a spiritual weapon and a half-step immortal weapon. It was an immortal weapon. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had seen a true immortal weapon. The sharpness of the trident made him feel a sense of dread. Donglin Ocean Emperor? Chu Fengmian looked over and saw the young man. He recognized the young man through Lan Ming's memory. Donglin Ocean Emperor. He was the disciple of the Ocean Emperor, the youngest Ocean Emperor in the Ocean Sacrifice sect. He was also one of the 2 Ocean Emperors in the Ocean Sacrifice sect. Chu Fengmian had heard a lot about Donglin Ocean Emperor. Today, he finally saw him with his own eyes. Boy, you've got guts to come to the Ocean Sacrifice sect. But today you've met your end. Donglin Ocean Emperor sized Chu Fengmian up and said arrogantly. As the youngest Ocean Emperor in the Ocean Sacrifice sect, Donglin Ocean Emperor had an innate arrogance. However, he had the right to be arrogant. Apart from the oldest Ocean Emperor, Donglin Ocean Emperor was the most talented Ocean Emperor. In just a few hundred years, he had become an Ocean Emperor. Such heaven-defying aptitude. Many other Ocean Emperors didn't even enter his eyes, let alone Chu Fengmian, a half-step sky being. Is that so? You want to stop me? I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Chu Fengmian sneered. His figure flickered and turned into a beam of light, flying out of the Ocean Sacrifice Sect. Chu Fengmian didn't want to waste time with Donglin Ocean Emperor. His goal was to escape the Ocean Sacrifice Sect. Is that so? What's this little beam of light? Primogenitor Tianlong, do you really think you're invincible? If I want to stop you, it'll be easy. Chu Fengmian's beam of light contained the power of Primogenitor Tianlong. It seemed slow, but in fact, it was half illusory and half real, making it impossible to stop. Donglin Ocean Emperor also saw this, but he suddenly took out an ancient stamp platform from his spatial ring. He held the stamp platform in his hand, poured spiritual power into it, and covered the ground. The surrounding space suddenly turned into a unique space. Even Chu Fengmian's beam of light was sucked into this space. Even if Chu Fengmian used the power of Primogenitor Tianlong, it seemed that he couldn't escape from this unique space. Another immortal artifact? Chu Fengmian looked at the stamp platform in Donglin Ocean Emperor's hand. It actually contained a wave of immortal power. The stamp platform that Donglin Ocean Emperor suddenly took out was another immortal artifact. It was the power of this stamp platform that directly sealed Chu Fengmian in this space. Chapter 1985. This stamp platform was another immortal artifact. Chu Fengmian had only seen a half-immortal artifact after coming to the Songhai Star Zone. As for a true immortal artifact, he had only seen the trident in the East Forest Ocean Emperor's hand for the first time. Even Lan Ming, whose strength was no less than a true celestial being and his status as an elder of the Sea Sacrifice Sect, had never possessed an immortal artifact. Now, the East Forest Ocean Emperor had taken out another immortal artifact. An Ocean Emperor who had just entered the celestial being realm actually had two immortal artifacts. The stamp platform that the East Forest Ocean Emperor had taken out this time had ancient patterns on it that were incomparably noble. Chu Fengmian couldn't immediately discern the mystery of these ancient patterns, but Chu Fengmian felt that these ancient patterns were somewhat similar to the ancient patterns on the Emperor Jar. This stamp platform was like an immortal artifact from before the primordial era had been shattered. However, it seemed to be somewhat similar to the Emperor Jar. For some unknown reason, this stamp platform had lost a lot of its power. Even so, the immortal artifact's power was still incomparably tyrannical. The stamp platform's power was activated by the East Forest Ocean Emperor and suddenly pulled Chu Fengmian into a unique space. This immortal artifact's stamp platform was actually an immortal artifact that contained the Space Tao. This kind of immortal artifact was incomparably precious and rare, even among thousands of immortal artifacts. Chu Fengmian was pulled into this space. He could feel that even though he had activated the power of Ancestor Tianlong, he couldn't break through this space and was trapped inside. The East Forest Ocean Emperor's strength isn't strong, but he actually has two immortal artifacts. The trident is still manageable, but this stamp platform is incomparably troublesome. The East Forest Ocean Emperor's strength wasn't even as strong as the three celestial being ancestors guarding the temple. However, the two immortal artifacts doubled his strength. This stamp platform, in particular, made Chu Fengmian feel that it was extremely troublesome. He gathered his spiritual energy and tried to bombard the surrounding space with the intention of creating an opening. However, no matter how Chu Fengmian bombarded it, the space remained unshaken. Kid, don't waste your energy. The space sealed by this stamp platform is so sealed that even a true celestial realm martial artist would not be able to escape, let alone a little guy like you who is only half a step into the celestial realm. The East Forest Ocean Emperor sneered as he watched Chu Fengmian attempt to break through the sealed space. You possess the bloodline of the black whale. Looks like that trash Lan Ming must have died at your hand. Looks like today is truly an opportunity given to me by the heavens. I've wanted that trash Lan Ming's Xian Jing bloodline for a long time, but I didn't have the chance to do it. Now that you've killed Lan Ming, it's perfect. I'll kill you today and the Xian Jing bloodline will be mine. The East Forest Ocean Emperor let out a hearty laugh. Holding the trident in his hand, he attacked again. An extremely ferocious halberd technique was unleashed. This set of halberd techniques was filled with murderous intent. In an instant, hundreds of sharp edges slashed towards Chu Fengmian from all directions. Any of these sharp edges was an absolute killing move. Even the slightest touch would cause one to fall into an irrecoverable situation. If not death, then injury. Immortal technique. Immortal artifact. The moment the East Forest Ocean Emperor attacked, the pressure on Chu Fengmian was even greater than when Chu Fengmian faced the waterfront Sword Ocean Emperor. The East Forest Ocean Emperor had already stepped into the celestial realm and become an immortal. The immortal weapon, the trident, and the immortal arts he executed were able to unleash their full power. The East Forest Ocean Emperor was the disciple of the worshipping Ocean Emperor. He was a super genius of the Ocean Sacrifice sect and had learned almost all of the mysterious immortal techniques passed down from ancient times. The East Forest Ocean Emperor attacked with ferocious moves. An ordinary celestial realm powerhouse might not be his match. Chu Fengmian originally planned to leave the Ocean Sacrifice sect directly, but now that he was sealed by the immortal platform, Chu Fengmian had no choice but to fight. Behind Chu Fengmian, the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword and the Titanic Godly Sword emerged from the World's Edge sword case. At the same time, tens of thousands of sword chi flew out from the World's Edge sword case. As Chu Fengmian's realm increased and stepped into the half-step celestial realm, the World's Edge sword case was now fully unleashed by Chu Fengmian. Tens of thousands of sword chi flew out from the World's Edge sword case and arrived in front of Chu Fengmian, suddenly turning into a sword array. Ancient sword array. Sky-splitting sword array. Tens of thousands of sword chi formed the sky-splitting sword array and collided with the East Forest Ocean Emperor's halberd technique in the air. Boom! The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and moon collapsed. The collision between the two forces was strong enough to shatter the mountains and rivers in the surroundings. The battle between Chu Fengmian and the East Forest Ocean Emperor was no different from a real celestial realm powerhouse. If there was no defense, it would be enough to shatter the entire star continent. However, the immortal artifact stamp in the East Forest Ocean Emperor's hand shook again. All the aftermath of the collision was sealed in this space, and could not be transmitted to the Sea Sacrifice sect below. At the same time, the East Forest Ocean Emperor held the stamp in his hand and suddenly suppressed Chu Fengmian. The moment this immortal artifact stamp suppressed Chu Fengmian felt an enormous pressure. His strength was suppressed at this moment by 50%. Originally, Chu Fengmian wanted to mobilize his strength to resist the suppression of this immortal artifact stamp. However, Chu Fengmian felt that his strength was somewhat weak and could not be mobilized. It was as if he was suppressed by this immortal artifact stamp. Break! Chu Fengmian roared. The sky-splitting sword array suddenly exploded. Tens of thousands of sword chi were all shattered and turned into a divine light that fiercely bombarded the immortal artifact's stamp. At this moment, Chu Fengmian seized the opportunity and hurriedly dodged back. The feeling of being suppressed finally disappeared. Luckily, Chu Fengmian escaped with a lingering fear. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian reacted quickly. He suddenly detonated the sky-splitting sword formation, condensed the power of tens of thousands of strands of sword chi, and fiercely bombarded the immortal artifact's stamp, giving Chu Fengmian a chance to escape from the suppression of the immortal artifact's stamp. The suppression of this immortal artifact stamp had suppressed 50% of Chu Fengmian's strength. It was simply terrifying to the extreme. If Chu Fengmian had not reacted in time, he would have been suppressed by this immortal artifact stamp. The power of this immortal artifact stamp made Chu Fengmian somewhat unable to resist. By the time Chu Fengmian realized it, his strength had already been suppressed. Chapter 1986. What is the origin of this stamp platform? This stamp platform comes from an incomparably ancient era. It has lost a lot of power, but it still has such power? Chu Fengmian felt that the power of this immortal artifact stamp platform was no less than the Emperor Jar in his hand. Even if Chu Fengmian took out the Emperor Jar now, he might not be able to contend with the power of this immortal artifact stamp platform. This time, Chu Fengmian only managed to avoid the first suppression. Seeing that the first suppression failed, the East Forest Sea Emperor condensed spiritual power again and suppressed with this immortal artifact stamp platform. At the same time, the East Forest Sea Emperor also held the trident and displayed countless halberd technique. In an instant, several halberd techniques were displayed at the same time. These halberd techniques, without exception, were all immortal technique. Although they were the most ordinary immortal techniques, the power displayed together was still incomparably terrifying. Chu Fengmian used both swords and displayed countless sword techniques of the 9 realms sword technique to resist. However, on the other side, Chu Fengmian still had to pay attention to the East Forest Sea Emperor's every move. The East Forest Sea Emperor did not use the halberd technique to kill Chu Fengmian. Instead, he wanted to make Chu Fengmian reveal a flaw. Then, he would directly attack and suppress with this immortal artifact stamp platform. In this way, the pressure that Chu Fengmian originally faced would become even greater. Every time he resisted, it was hair-raising. If he was careless, he would be suppressed by this immortal artifact stamp platform. At the same time, Chu Fengmian felt that the 3 Sea Sacrifice Sect patriarchs who had been chasing him had also caught up. If he did not deal with the East Forest Sea Emperor's immortal artifact stamp platform now and escape, then Chu Fengmian would be besieged by 4 Celestial Realm experts. Even if Chu Fengmian had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would undoubtedly die. Chu Fengmian struggled to resist the halberd technique of the East Forest Sea Emperor and the suppression of the immortal artifact stamp platform while observing the stamp platform in the East Forest Sea Emperor's hand. Chu Fengmian knew that the most troublesome thing about the East Forest Sea Emperor was this immortal artifact stamp platform. Without this immortal artifact stamp platform, Chu Fengmian could use the power of Tianlong change to escape at any time. But it was precisely this immortal tool stamp that completely sealed off the surrounding space, making it impossible for Chu Fengmian to escape. However, it was impossible for the Donglin Ocean Emperor to suppress Chu Fengmian within a short period of time. This was the first time Chu Fengmian was caught off guard. After suffering from the immortal treasure imprint platform, Chu Fengmian had been paying attention to it. This immortal implement stamp probably hadn't completely recognized the Donglin Sea Emperor as its master, just like the Renhuang Jar back then. Although the East Forest Ocean Emperor could use the immortal platform to suppress Chu Fengmian, it wouldn't be as easy. There would be a gap, and this gap would allow Chu Fengmian to escape. The East Forest Ocean Emperor had forced Chu Fengmian into a desperate situation several times in a row. He had tried to suppress Chu Fengmian, but all his efforts had been in vain. At the last moment, Chu Fengmian had managed to escape. This made the East Forest Ocean Emperor even angrier. In his eyes, dealing with Chu Fengmian was just like dealing with a little guy who was half a step away from the Celestial Being realm. Since he had already used 2 immortal artifacts, suppressing Chu Fengmian should be a piece of cake. After several failures, the East Forest Ocean Emperor was infuriated. How troublesome! Kid, do you really think you can escape from me? Life Seal. Suppress the common life. The East Forest Ocean Emperor roared and poured a large amount of immortal power into the immortal tool stamp in his hand. This immortal power wasn't the East Forest Ocean Emperor's own power, but a part of the immortal power he had accumulated by devouring immortal stones. Celestial being realm experts could only truly condense immortal power when they reached the immortal general realm. For example, the East Forest Ocean Emperor could only borrow immortal power from external objects for his own use. After the immortal force was injected into the immortal weapon imprint emitted a blinding light. Countless ancient runes on the immortal weapon imprint were awakened by the immortal force. A shocking might suppressed the heavens and earth. After the immortal power was poured into the immortal tool stamp, it was as if a peerless expert had suddenly awakened from a deep slumber. This was the true power of the immortal tool stamp. Life seal. This was the true appearance of the immortal tool stamp. The life seal was awakened by the injection of immortal energy. The East Forest Ocean Emperor held it in his hand, and his aura instantly grew several times stronger. This was the East Forest Ocean Emperor's strength. As the top genius of the Poseidon sect, the East Forest Ocean Emperor possessed the strength of the East Forest Ocean Emperor. However, in order to awaken the life seal, the immortal force that was injected into the immortal tool platform was equivalent to the immortal force of 50 to 60 immortal stones. Using up 50 to 60 immortal stones in one go was an incomparably extravagant act. Even with the East Forest Ocean Emperor's wealth, he couldn't afford such a huge expenditure. Therefore, he wasn't willing to use the true power of the life seal unless it was absolutely necessary. However, Chu Fengmian had managed to escape every time he tried to suppress him. That had thoroughly enraged the East Forest Sea Emperor, who was now using up immortal stones to awaken the life grand seal and completely suppress Chu Fengmian. The human emperor's halberd. The moment the life seal was awakened, Chu Fengmian felt an intense sense of danger. Even though the life seal had not been awakened earlier, Chu Fengmian still found it extremely troublesome to deal with. If he was careless, he would be suppressed. Now that it had been awakened, the power of the life seal had increased by several times. Chu Fengmian didn't dare to hold back. He immediately summoned the human emperor's jar, which transformed into the human emperor's halberd in his hand, and blasted towards the East Forest Ocean Emperor. An extreme immortal weapon? The East Forest Ocean Emperor's expression changed slightly when he saw the human emperor's halberd. However, he soon realized that the weapon in Chu Fengmian's hand wasn't a complete extreme immortal weapon. It was only a fragment. A complete extreme Dao celestial weapon was completely different from an incomplete one. Seeing the human emperor's halberd attack, the East Forest Ocean Emperor sneered and smashed the life seal in his hand. Bam! The two immortal weapons collided in the air. The sharpness of the human emperor's halberd was directly blocked by the life seal. The vibrating power caused the surrounding space to tremble slightly, but it still couldn't break the space. Chu Fengmian had summoned the human emperor's halberd to forcibly break the surrounding space, but he failed again. The life seal was the condensation of the power of heaven and earth. It formed a world of its own and was simply unshakable. Who could shake the vastness of heaven and earth? The life seal was the condensation of heaven and earth. Even the human emperor's halberd couldn't shake it. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1987. As long as Chu Fengmian couldn't break through the seal, he wouldn't be able to break through the seal. He would be trapped inside until he died. Is the life seal unbreakable? Chu Fengmian frowned as he looked at the seal. Even the sharpness of the human emperor's halberd couldn't shake the seal. This made Chu Fengmian feel a little desperate. The Donglin Ocean Emperor wasn't the strongest person Chu Fengmian had fought, but he was definitely the most difficult to deal with. Being trapped in the space of the life grand seal, Chu Fengmian's only path was death. Chu Fengmian pondered. On the other side, the Donglin Ocean Emperor's gaze fell on the human emperor's halberd in Chu Fengmian's hand. The halberd in your hand contains the power of the human emperor. It should be the legendary human emperor's halberd, the human emperor's jar. I didn't expect it to fall into your hands. The Donglin Ocean Emperor was knowledgeable and recognized the origin of the halberd in Chu Fengmian's hand at a glance. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had met someone outside the 9 regions who recognized the halberd. As a genius of the oceanic sacrificial sect, the Donglin Ocean Emperor had unparalleled talent and strength. He had countless fortuitous encounters and now had vast knowledge. Such a person was simply terrifying to the extreme. Rumor has it that the human emperor's jar is broken. I didn't expect it to have condensed to such an extent. It just so happens that I'm still lacking an extreme immortal weapon. After I kill you, I'll find an opportunity to gather all the fragments of the jar and condense them into the real human emperor's halberd for my use. The moment the Donglin Ocean Emperor spoke, his figure suddenly moved. He didn't use the trident to force Chu Fengmian, but directly picked up the life seal and fiercely suppressed Chu Fengmian. The moment the life seal fell, it divided into 10 illusory shadows and suppressed Chu Fengmian at the same time. Every single one of these illusory figures was formed using celestial energy. Although they were illusory figures, the power contained within them was simply unstoppable. The 10 life seals suppressed Chu Fengmian at the same time, sealing him off and leaving him no room to retreat. 9 profound sword art, voracious wolf, giant gate, Lutsuan, heavenly mystery, 7 kills, Tualuo, 3 suns blazing sword, 4 directions hurricane sword. Chu Fengmian struck out with both swords. The halberd of the human emperor also transformed into the jar of the human emperor. All the power of the human emperor was added to the 2 spiritual swords. The 2 swords contained all of Chu Fengmian's sword intent. They were the strongest swords he had ever unleashed. They bombarded the life seal in front of him. One of the 2 sword blades was the combination of the first 6 moves of the 9 profound sword art. The power of the stars in the sky condensed into a river of sword aura. The power of the first 6 moves of the 9 profound sword art combined into one and burst out. The other sword edge was the combination of the first sword emperor's 2 sword arts, the 3 suns blazing flame sword and the 4 directions hurricane sword. Wind and fire intertwined and turned into a sword light that slashed forward. At this moment, Chu Fengmian had also used his full strength. An ancient and noble battle dragon claw formed above his head. This was no longer the battle dragon claw, but the ancestral sky dragon claw. The claw of progenitor Jianwang formed above Chu Fengmian's head and bombarded the life seal. The 6th move of progenitor. Chu Fengmian unleashed the strongest move of the 9 moves of progenitor that he had comprehended from the Dragon Clan's martial technique. The 3 forces collided with the life seal above Chu Fengmian's head. Boom! Even a true celestial realm powerhouse could be killed by such tyrannical power. The common life Great Seal finally showed signs of cracking under the pressure of the boundless power. One of the illusory figures within the seal was shattered. Immediately, the 2nd and 3rd shadows were shattered. The 10 common people's great seals were all shattered, leaving only the one with the main body. Break! Chu Fengmian's countless opportunities, his swordsmanship, and his fortuitous encounters were all sublimated the moment he stepped into the half-step celestial realm. The power of his swordsmanship and the 9 moves of progenitor were completely different from before. The sudden burst of power was beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. It was also beyond the imagination of the Donglin Ocean Emperor. Puff! The Donglin Ocean Emperor, who was holding the life seal, suddenly spat out blood under the bombardment of the 3 forces. Even though the life seal had withstood 99% of the power, the aftermath still injured him. However, Chu Fengmian's target this time was not the Donglin Ocean Emperor, but the life seal. The 3 forces converged and bombarded the life seal. The life seal was the embodiment of heaven and earth. Under the attack of the 3 forces, a gap finally appeared. Following the appearance of these gaps, the surrounding space began to shatter. Chu Fengmian burst out with his full strength. The sudden attack was beyond the Donglin Ocean Emperor's imagination. The Donglin Ocean Emperor was caught off guard and suffered a great loss. However, the Donglin Ocean Emperor had experienced countless battles of life and death. He reacted in an instant and swallowed several saint pills. The injuries on his body immediately healed. He grabbed the life seal and suddenly, a large amount of immortal stones appeared in his hand. There were over 200 immortal stones in this handful. The Donglin Ocean Emperor didn't hesitate. He crushed the 200 immortal stones and an endless amount of pure immortal force was devoured by the life seal. The Mortal Life Grand Seal could only be fully activated with immortal energy. The Donglin Ocean Emperor originally thought that burning a few dozen immortal stones would be enough to suppress Chu Fengmian. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to counterattack and suffer a great loss. This time, the Donglin Ocean Emperor took out all the immortal stones he had accumulated. More than 200 immortal stones suddenly flew out. The Donglin Ocean Emperor crushed them and the life seal devoured them. The life seal was like a bottomless pit, madly devouring the immortal force. The more immortal force there was, the more terrifying the life seal's power became. In an instant, the crack on the life seal was instantly repaired. The world formed by the life seal was once again condensed and became incomparably sturdy. In fact, it was even sturdier than before. The immortal force of more than 200 immortal stones allowed the life seal's power to fully recover. It was even stronger than before. Kid, you're dreaming if you think you can escape from me. Today you made me pay such a great price. Once I suppress you, I will subdue you and make you my slave. Only then will I be able to make up for my losses. The Donglin Ocean Emperor stared at Chu Fengmian and said in an extremely cold tone, "Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember." Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1988. In order to deal with Chu Fengmian, the Donglin Ocean Emperor had paid a huge price. He had burned all the immortal stones he had accumulated and turned them into the power of the life seal in order to suppress Chu Fengmian. The Donglin Ocean Emperor's face turned extremely cold as he had to pay such a huge price to deal with a half-step celestial realm warrior who was just a nobody in his eyes. He had decided that after suppressing Chu Fengmian, he would torture Chu Fengmian and make him a slave. Only by making him beg for death could he resolve the hatred in his heart. The power of more than 200 immortal stones was devoured by the life seal. The power of the life seal seemed to have been further awakened as a boundless suppressive force descended from the sky. Every corner of the entire space was filled with this suppressive force. As long as one did not escape from this side of the world, no matter where they hid, they would not be able to escape the suppression of the life seal. This was not the worst. From the depths of the temple, 3 rays of light suddenly flew out. The 3 celestial realm ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect had also rushed over when Chu Fengmian was entangled with the Donglin Ocean Emperor. Now, Chu Fengmian had to deal with 4 people in one breath instead of only facing the Donglin Ocean Emperor. Donglin, thank you for stopping this person. The 3 celestial realm ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Chu Fengmian trapped in the space of the life seal. It's okay. The 3 of you came at the right time. You 3 deal with this person. I will use a secret technique to suppress him in one breath. Remember, don't kill him. Just keep him occupied. I want to suppress and subdue him and make him beg for death. The Donglin Ocean Emperor said through gritted teeth, his tone containing boundless anger. Okay. The 3 celestial realm ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect said in unison. Their figures entered the space of the life seal and attacked Chu Fengmian at the same time. The 3 of them had been careless previously and allowed Chu Fengmian to escape from the sacrificial lake. It was said that the 3 of them had lost a lot of face. This time, they naturally would not show mercy to Chu Fengmian. The 3 of them attacked fiercely. Although they weren't killing moves, they still forced Chu Fengmian to the side. The three Celestial Realm experts joined forces to deal with Chu Fengmian. It was extremely difficult for Chu Fengmian to resist, but Chu Fengmian also knew that these three people were not the most difficult to deal with. The most troublesome one was the East Forest Ocean Emperor. The East Forest Ocean Emperor didn't make a move, not because he wanted to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor, but because he was accumulating power. It seemed that he wanted to use a secret technique to suppress Chu Fengmian, not giving him any chance to escape. If he waited for Donglin-Si Emperor to finish gathering his power, Chu Fengmian would have no chance of escaping. Life Seal? Why is it the power of this immortal artifact? Just as Chu Fengmian was feeling extremely anxious, Xing Xian's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Even Xing Xian, who had been in a deep slumber, woke up amidst this crisis. He immediately sensed the aura of the life seal. Xingxuan, do you know the origin of this life seal? Chu Fengmian asked hurriedly. In order to deal with this life seal, he had used all his means. The sudden burst of power just now was almost the best opportunity for Chu Fengmian. But it was still neutralized by the East Forest Ocean Emperor. As long as the life seal was supported by enough immortal force, Chu Fengmian couldn't break it no matter how he attacked. Xing Xian suddenly woke up and knew about the life seal. Perhaps he could learn a way to deal with this life seal from him. This great mortal life seal is the imperial jade seal of a supreme expert from the desolate era, the great mortal life emperor. This great mortal life seal has the ability to form a space of its own, suppressing the heavens and even forming a world of its own. This immortal weapon has actually appeared. Xing Xian suddenly spoke, awakening many ancient memories. You're trapped in the world of the life seal? Yes, I've encountered an extremely difficult enemy. This life seal is controlled by this person. Chu Fengmian hurriedly asked. Is there a way to deal with this life seal? Deal with the life seal. Xing Xian seemed to have observed the life seal for a while and immediately spoke. This life seal hasn't recognized a master yet. In this case, there is a way. As long as you can seize this life seal, you'll naturally be able to leave this space. Seize the life seal. Chu Fengmian was stunned. He hadn't thought of this. You know the ancient emperor's art of seizing war, but that alone won't be enough to seize the life seal. I know some life emperor art. As long as you cultivate this life emperor art, you'll be the successor of the life emperor. Then, with the ancient emperor's art of seizing war, you'll be able to seize the life seal. Xing Xian also knew that this was an extremely urgent moment. Without further ado, a cultivation technique suddenly appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. This cultivation technique was obscure and difficult to understand. To ordinary people, it was like a heavenly book that was difficult to understand. However, Chu Fengmian had once comprehended the Sword Dao Totem. The countless sword techniques recorded in the Sword Dao Totem were as obscure and difficult to understand as the Life Emperor art. Chu Fengmian comprehended the Life Emperor art very quickly. In a few breaths, Chu Fengmian had comprehended a basic level and condensed a wisp of Life Emperor force. Only those who cultivated the Life Emperor art and possessed the Life Emperor force were qualified to control the Life Seal. For example, although the Donglin Ocean Emperor had controlled the Life Seal for a long time, he still couldn't make the seal recognize him as its master. Even though the Donglin Ocean Emperor had stepped into the celestial realm, he still couldn't do this because he hadn't cultivated the Life Emperor art and didn't have the Life Emperor force. Now that Chu Fengmian cultivated the Life Emperor art, even if he only cultivated a little and condensed a wisp of Life Emperor force, it would have a huge impact on the Life Seal. Chu Fengmian resisted the attacks of the three Celestial Realm experts while condensing the Life Emperor force little by little. Fortunately, the three of them didn't kill Chu Fengmian because of the Donglin Ocean Emperor's words. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be so calm. Boy, it's time for you to die. The Donglin Ocean Emperor's voice suddenly came from the sky. He stood at the top of this world like a high and mighty emperor, looking down at Chu Fengmian. Suppress. The word suppress was like the judgment of an ancient emperor. The words of an emperor were of great weight. The moment the word suppress was shouted, the life seal in the Donglin Ocean Emperor's hand came crashing down. First, set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, booked guest house. Chapter 1989. The East Forest Ocean Emperor's accumulated power finally reached its peak. He activated a supreme secret technique and the power of more than 200 immortal stones to activate the life seal. He pushed the power of the great life seal to its limit. When the power was condensed to the extreme, ancient characters began to appear on the great life seal. Chu Fengmian didn't understand these ancient characters before, but now that he had cultivated the Life Emperor art, he could tell that these ancient characters were a supreme suppression technique of the Life Emperor art. Although the Common People's seal wasn't the most powerful immortal weapon of the Common People Emperor, it was the immortal weapon that had been with the Common People Emperor for the longest time. It was constantly in contact with the Common People Emperor's power and imprinted countless immortal skills of the Common People Emperor into the Common People's seal. The East Forest Ocean Emperor used a secret technique to activate all the power of the Common Life Great Seal. The power of the world formed by the Common Life Great Seal condensed at one point and suppressed Chu Fengmian. Even if it was a celestial realm powerhouse, under such terrifying power, the only result would be to be suppressed. The East Forest Ocean Emperor hadn't cultivated the Life Emperor art, so he couldn't use the full power of the seal. Otherwise, the suppression of the seal would be countless times more terrifying. Even so, when the life seal descended, Chu Fengmian felt that 99% of his power had been suppressed. In an instant, Chu Fengmian was about to be suppressed by the life seal. Be suppressed. The East Forest Ocean Emperor sneered when he saw Chu Fengmian's aura getting weaker and weaker. He took another step forward, and the life seal suddenly grew countless times larger and pressed down on Chu Fengmian. The life seal suppressed Chu Fengmian, and his aura was slowly being obliterated. It seemed that he was far from being able to withstand the power of the life seal. However, just as Chu Fengmian was about to be suppressed, a surge of spiritual power suddenly appeared from between his eyebrows. This surge of spiritual power contained the power of an emperor and was boundlessly domineering. This spiritual power was a strand of emperor force that Chu Fengmian had gathered from cultivating the Life Emperor mantra. Although Chu Fengmian was only able to condense a little bit of emperor force in this short period of time, it was enough to deal with the Great Seal of Life. The Life Emperor's power enveloped Chu Fengmian's body. Instantly, the pressure from the Life Emperor's seal disappeared. Chu Fengmian's power was once again under his control. As expected, the Life Emperor force is the nemesis of the Life Seal. The East Forest Ocean Emperor doesn't understand the Mortal Emperor mantra, so he can't use the Mortal Emperor seal against me. Chu Fengmian felt the pressure on his body suddenly decrease, and he knew that his plan had succeeded. The Life Emperor force was indeed enough to counter the Life Seal. The Mortal Life Seal was an immortal artifact forged by the Mortal Life Emperor. Only those who cultivated the Mortal Life Emperor mantra could truly use the power of the Mortal Life Seal. Although Chu Fengmian had only cultivated a small portion of the Mortal Life Emperor mantra and condensed a strand of Emperor force, it was enough. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the Emperor force of the common people entered the Great Seal of Life. The Great Seal of Life struggled to expel the imprint left behind by the Donglin Ocean Emperor, trying to break free. What's going on? What's happening to the Great Seal of Life? I've left a mark on my Great Seal of Life. Although it hasn't truly recognized me as its master, it has always been under my control. What's going on? The East Forest Ocean Emperor instantly felt that the Great Seal of Life was about to break free from his control, expel his imprint, and become completely independent. This made the East Forest Ocean Emperor feel that something was wrong. Panic appeared on the East Forest Ocean Emperor's face. The Great Seal of Life was the most powerful immortal artifact in the East Forest Ocean Emperor's possession. With the Great Seal of Life, the East Forest Ocean Emperor could gain the upper hand in a battle with Sky Realm experts. He didn't want the seal to break free from his control. The East Forest Ocean Emperor urged his spiritual power to retrieve the Great Seal of Life, but Chu Fengmian wouldn't let him do so. A strand of spiritual power suddenly condensed in Chu Fengmian's palm and transformed into an invisible hand that suddenly grabbed at the Great Seal of Life. This invisible hand was the ancient emperor's art of war. Chu Fengmian had killed Lan Ming and obtained his memories. This was the ancient emperor's secret technique and the ancient emperor's art of war. As soon as the ancient emperor's art of war was used, the invisible hand immediately grabbed the Great Seal of Life and pulled it toward Chu Fengmian. The ancient emperor's art of war? Not good. 3 patriarchs quickly attack and kill this man. He wants to seize my Great Seal of Life. As soon as the ancient emperor's art of war was used, the East Forest Ocean Emperor, who had been full of confidence, seemed to have seen something that terrified him. He anxiously told the 3 Sky Realm Patriarchs of the Sea Sacrifice Sect. Chu Fengmian only had one purpose in using the ancient emperor's art of war, and that was to seize the Great Seal of Life. If it had been before, the East Forest Ocean Emperor wouldn't have been afraid even if Chu Fengmian had used the ancient emperor's art of war. After all, the Great Seal of Life still had his imprint. Even if the ancient emperor's art of war was used, it would still be difficult to seize the Great Seal of Life. But now, after Chu Fengmian's infusion of emperor's power, the East Forest Ocean Emperor could clearly feel that the imprint he had left on the Great Seal of Life had been largely erased. The East Forest Ocean Emperor's control over the Great Seal of Life was getting weaker and weaker. Now that Chu Fengmian had used the ancient emperor's art of war, it was simply one disaster after another. The Great Seal of Life was about to break free from his control. The East Forest Ocean Emperor was confident that he could deal with Chu Fengmian because of the Great Seal of Life. If he lost the Great Seal of Life, or if it fell into Chu Fengmian's hands, the situation would be completely reversed. The East Forest Ocean Emperor knew how terrifying the Great Seal of Life was. He didn't dare to think that it would fall into Chu Fengmian's hands. The ancient emperor's art of war? Stop him. Don't let him succeed. The 3 Sky Realm Patriarchs of the Sea Sacrifice Sect didn't hesitate to attack at the same time when they heard the East Forest Ocean Emperor's words. They unleashed countless killing moves and bombarded Chu Fengmian. This time, the 3 Celestial Being Patriarchs of the Sea Sacrifice Sect didn't hold back at all. They used their supreme killing moves to kill Chu Fengmian. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1990. The 3 celestial ancestors had always wanted to suppress Chu Fengmian so that they could obtain his countless fortuitous encounters. But now that the life seal was about to fall into Chu Fengmian's hands, they changed their minds and decided to go for the kill. They had witnessed the power of the life seal before. If Chu Fengmian obtained it, the consequences would be unimaginable. The 3 Celestial Being Patriarchs of the Sea Sacrifice Sect had also used all their trump cards to kill Chu Fengmian. You want to kill me now? Too late. All of you will die at my hands today. Chu Fengmian roared again and again. Dragon roars resounded through the world. Behind Chu Fengmian, 6 incomparably huge dragon claws condensed. Each of the 6 gigantic dragon claws contained the origin of dragons. In the face of the onslaught of killing moves, the 6 gigantic dragon claws struck out at the same time. These 6 enormous dragon claws were the condensation of the first 6 forms of the primogenitor that Chu Fengmian had mastered. The power of the first 6 forms of the primogenitor was unleashed at the same time, colliding with the countless killing moves of the 3C Sacrifice Sect Patriarchs. On the other side, Chu Fengmian also used the power of the Life Emperor art to seize the life seal with the ancient emperor's art of war. The imprint left by the Donglin Ocean Emperor in the life seal had been completely obliterated by the power of the Life Emperor. With a thought, Chu Fengmian used the power of the Mortal Emperor art to communicate with the Mortal Life Great Seal. Suddenly, the power of the Mortal Life Great Seal was transmitted into Chu Fengmian's mind. Chu Fengmian sensed that the Life Seal had recognized him as its master. When the Mortal Life Great Seal sensed the power of the Mortal Life Emperor art on Chu Fengmian, it didn't hesitate and immediately recognized him as its master. The Donglin Ocean Emperor had spent hundreds of years and used countless methods to achieve this. But now, Chu Fengmian had accomplished it with the Life Emperor art. Collect. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the Life Seal suddenly flew out of the East Forest Ocean Emperor's control and into Chu Fengmian's palm. Rumble. The surrounding world was changing. The Life Great Seal had already recognized Chu Fengmian as its master. The surrounding space no longer suppressed Chu Fengmian. In fact, it even made Chu Fengmian feel extremely comfortable. In this part of the world, Chu Fengmian controlled the Life Seal and was the only ruler of this world. After seizing the Life Seal, all the restrictions that Chu Fengmian had been under previously disappeared, and he felt incomparably relaxed. On the other side, the pressure that Chu Fengmian had just endured suddenly shifted to the East Forest Ocean Emperor and the three ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect. Not good, the Life Seal has fallen into his hands and recognized him as its master. How is this possible? How is this possible? The East Forest Ocean Emperor was furious when he saw the Life Seal fall into Chu Fengmian's hands. He could sense that the Life Seal had recognized Chu Fengmian as its master. He had spent hundreds of years and used countless methods, but he still couldn't do it. Now, in just a few seconds, the Common Life Great Seal had recognized Chu Fengmian as its master. This made the Donglin Ocean Emperor go crazy with jealousy. Kill. Donglin. Let's attack together and kill this man. Even if he controls the Life Seal, he's only a half-step Celestial Realm martial artist. If we attack together, we'll definitely be able to kill him. The Guardian Elder was the first to react and shouted loudly. So what if Chu Fengmian had seized the Life Seal? They had 4 Celestial Realm experts on their side. They didn't believe that Chu Fengmian could withstand their combined attack. That's right, kill this man. Kill. Kill. The East Forest Ocean Emperor and the other 2 Celestial Realm ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect did not hesitate. They roared and attacked at the same time. At this moment, the 4 Celestial Realm experts attacked Chu Fengmian. 4 Celestial Realm experts? So what? I'll let you see the terror of the Life Seal. Chu Fengmian held the Life Seal in his hand and watched the 4 Celestial Realm experts attack at the same time. His expression was extremely calm as he suddenly smashed the Life Seal down with all his might. Chu Fengmian infused the Life Emperor's force into the Life Seal. Suddenly, the countless dormant ancient runes in the seal were all awakened. Although immortal force could activate the Life Seal, the most suitable thing to activate it was the unique power of the Life Emperor art, the Life Emperor's force. Only under the activation of the Life Emperor's force could the Life Seal unleash its full power. Now that Chu Fengmian cultivated the Life Emperor art and had condensed the Life Emperor's force, he also understood many of the Life Emperor's immortal techniques in the Life Emperor art. This time, when he activated the power of the Life Seal, he also activated the power of many of the immortal techniques in the seal and suppressed them all together. Rumble. The Common People's Seal, which was powered by the Common People's Emperor force, slammed down fiercely. This time, the surrounding space folded up layer by layer. Layer by layer, the space condensed together and slammed down suddenly. Boom! The Donglin Ocean Emperor, the Guardian Elder, and the other 2 patriarchs of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect felt their strength being severely suppressed in an instant. Their strength was reduced to less than 1/10 of their original. The power of the Common Life Great Seal could suppress even 4 Celestial Realm expert. This was the true power of the Common Life Great Seal, the immortal weapon of the Common Life Great Emperor. Not good, let's join forces to resist this suppression. The Donglin Ocean Emperor was the first to react and shouted loudly. The suppression power of the life seal was extremely terrifying. Even with their celestial realm cultivation, they couldn't resist it. Only by resisting together could they offset the suppression. The other three patriarchs of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect heard this and moved closer to the Donglin Ocean Emperor. However, at this moment, Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly moved. He held two swords in his hands and suddenly took a step forward, flying towards the Guardian Elder. In a flash, he arrived in front of the Guardian Elder and slashed down with his two swords. Chu Fengmian wanted to defeat the four Celestial Realm experts one by one. The Guardian Elder was the weakest among the four. Today, Chu Fengmian wanted to kill the Guardian Elder first. Sea God Protection. Seeing Chu Fengmian suddenly rushing over, the Guardian Elder's face was filled with panic. He hurriedly mobilized his spiritual power and turned it into a barrier. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1991. However, under the suppression of the life seal, more than 90% of the Guardian Elder's power had been sealed. The barely condensed defense could not withstand Chu Fengmian's sword at all. Break for me! Chu Fengmian's two swords slashed down at the same time, instantly tearing apart the barriers condensed in front of the Guardian Elder. Slaughter! A murderous intent erupted from Chu Fengmian's body and condensed into the two swords. The slaughter swordsmanship slashed directly at the Guardian Elder. Sea God's Shadow. Suddenly, a huge Sea God's shadow appeared. The Sea God's shadow held a trident and stabbed at Chu Fengmian. The Sea God's shadow was jointly displayed by the Sea Emperor of Donglin Sea and the other two ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice sect. They could not sit idly by and let Chu Fengmian kill the Guardian Elder. The Sea God's shadow, condensed by the power of three Celestial Realm experts, already had the momentum of a real sea god. It dominated the four seas and was invincible in the world. Holding the trident, it blasted towards Chu Fengmian. You want to deal with me by condensing a sea god's shadow? Life seal, smash it for me. Chu Fengmian looked at the sea god's shadow and sneered. Under the urging of spiritual power, the life seal smashed down fiercely. Boom! The life seal smashed on the sea god's shadow. With a rumble, the sea god's shadow shook violently. The sea god's shadow's body was smashed by the life seal. The phantom of the sea god was smashed into pieces by the mortal life great seal and shattered. The sea god's shadow, condensed by the power of three Celestial Realm experts, could not withstand a single blow and was directly smashed into pieces by the life seal. Die! Chu Fengmian's eyes did not care about the smashed sea god's shadow. His eyes were fixed on the Guardian Elder, containing boundless murderous intent. The slaughter swordsmanship, condensed by the slaughter swordsmanship, slashed down with a loud bang. The blood-red slaughter swordsmanship turned into tens of thousands of swords and slashed down. Boom! The Guardian Elder didn't even have time to defend himself. His body was enveloped by the sword light and was torn apart. His essence blood scattered in all directions. However, Chu Fengmian, who controlled the life seal, was the only ruler of this world. The Guardian Elder's essence and blood had nowhere to run. They were all sealed in a small space. Chu Fengmian sneered. With a thought, he activated the heaven-devouring secret technique, which turned into a huge black hole. The terrifying power sucked the Guardian Elder's blood essence into the black hole. The Guardian Elder's essence blood was completely devoured by the heaven-devouring secret technique. Not a single drop escaped. Following the refinement of the heaven-devouring mystic technique, only the Guardian Elder's blood-curdling screams were left in the black hole. The Guardian Elder's aura suddenly vanished. A Celestial Realm expert, one of the ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice School, the Guardian Elder responsible for guarding the temple, had fallen just like that. In the hands of Chu Fengmian, the Guardian Elder didn't even have the power to resist. He was mercilessly killed by Chu Fengmian. The Donglin Sea Emperor and the other two Celestial Realm ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice School were shocked to see the Guardian Elder killed by Chu Fengmian. The Guardian Elder was a Celestial Realm expert, but now he was killed by Chu Fengmian, a half-step Celestial Realm expert. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have been able to imagine this scene. If a warrior, who was a half-step Celestial Realm expert, could compete with a Celestial Realm expert, he could be called a genius, a monster. But now, Chu Fengmian was much more terrifying. He directly killed the Guardian Elder. Of course, all of this was due to the Life Seal. Chu Fengmian had obtained the Life Seal. With the Life Seal, Chu Fengmian's strength had improved tremendously. He finally had the ability to kill a Celestial Realm expert. I finally killed a Celestial Realm expert with my own hands. Chu Fengmian's heart was filled with emotions. A Celestial Realm expert had now died in the hands of Chu Fengmian. Once upon a time, the Celestial Realm was still an unreachable existence in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Before Chu Fengmian came to the Songhai Star Zone, the Celestial Realm experts were like legendary figures. But now, Chu Fengmian had the ability to kill a Celestial Realm expert. Although Chu Fengmian had once killed Lan Ming, a powerful figure who was not inferior to the Celestial Realm, Lan Ming was not a real Celestial Realm after all. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian had only been able to kill Lan Ming with the help of the Mad Dragon Emperor. The Guardian Elder, on the other hand, was a true Celestial Realm powerhouse. Furthermore, this time, he had killed the Guardian Elder all by himself. This made Chu Fengmian feel that the Celestial Realm was no longer a mysterious and unreachable existence. Chu Fengmian could kill a Celestial Realm expert, which meant that Chu Fengmian could kill a second and third Celestial Realm expert in the future. Chu Fengmian's eyes swept the area below. At least, Chu Fengmian did not intend to let any of these three people go. Seeing Chu Fengmian's eyes sweep over them, the Donglin Ocean Emperor and the other two Ocean Sacrifice Sect Patriarchs shuddered. The scene of the Guardian Elder being killed was still vivid in their minds, and they did not want to become the next Guardian Elder. "Let's go. This person is not someone we can deal with," the Donglin Ocean Emperor roared. He no longer had the courage to fight Chu Fengmian. He could still suppress Chu Fengmian with the Life Seal, but without the seal, his strength was not much stronger than Chu Fengmian's. Moreover, this time, the Life Seal had fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands, so he did not want to continue fighting Chu Fengmian. "Let's go, let's go." The other two Ocean Sacrifice Sect Patriarchs heard the Donglin Ocean Emperor's words and immediately moved, flying out of the space. The two of them no longer had the courage to continue fighting Chu Fengmian. They only wanted to escape. These Celestial Realm experts had all survived the Celestial Tribulation and narrowly escaped death to reach the Celestial Realm. They did not want to die at Chu Fengmian's hands like today. As long as they escaped from the space of the Life Seal, they could return to the Ocean Sacrifice Sect. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, he would not be able to break into the Ocean Sacrifice Sect and kill them. The East Forest Ocean Emperor and the other two ancestors of the Sea Sacrifice Sect flashed and arrived at the edge of the space. They attacked at the same time. 3 palm prints blasted out at the same time, bombarding the space created by the Life Seal. The joint bombardment of the 3 Celestial Realm experts suddenly caused countless cracks to appear in the space. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1992. The combined attacks of the Donglin Ocean Emperor and the 2 patriarchs of the Sea Sacrifice Sect actually caused countless cracks to appear in the space of the common Life Seal. Just now, in order to activate the Great Seal of Life to suppress these 3 people, Chu Fengmian had already exhausted the power of the Great Seal of Life. Now that it had to bear the joint attack of 3 Celestial Realm experts, it was already at its limit. Chu Fengmian's expression turned grave when he saw the cracks in the surrounding space. Although this space was within the Sea Sacrifice Sect, it had been transformed into a separate space by the power of the common Life Seal. The experts of the Sea Sacrifice sect outside couldn't sense the battle taking place in this space. Otherwise, the death of the Guardian Elder would have been enough to attract the attention of the Reverend Ocean Emperor. If the space of the common life seal was shattered, the Reverend Ocean Emperor would definitely be alarmed. Tianlong transformation. Chu Fengmian instantly unleashed the power of primogenitor Tianlong to the extreme. Primogenitor Tianlong's power enveloped the entire space. Whoosh! The entire space of the common life seal was forcibly moved by Chu Fengmian. He used his supreme power to move the common life seal to the depths of the space. Chu Fengmian's purpose was to move the space of the common life seal away from the Sea Sacrifice sect. This way, even if the space was shattered, the Reverend Ocean Emperor wouldn't be able to detect their auras. Chu Fengmian used the power of the Tianlong transformation to move the space of the common life seal to the depths of the void. Only pitch-black darkness and bursts of spatial turbulence could be seen around them. This was the depths of the void where the space was shattered. Even if a power was transmitted, no one would be able to detect it. To move a space into the depths of space with great force was something that ordinary people would not even dare to dream of. But now, Chu Fengmian had achieved such a shocking feat. Chu Fengmian had integrated the primordial energy that belonged to primogenitor Tianlong's claw and become a mutant of heaven and earth. He controlled the dragon origin source, and his attainments in the space Tao had also reached an extremely high level. Even so, Chu Fengmian still felt a sense of loss when he moved the space of the common life seal to the depths of the void. Such an action simply exhausted all of Chu Fengmian's strength. Even though Chu Fengmian had the divine veins and could absorb spiritual energy to recover at any time, it would be difficult for him to recover in a short period of time. Good. This person's energy was almost depleted. This was a good opportunity. Now is the perfect time for us to strike and kill this kid. When the East Forest Sea Emperor saw the space being teleported deep into the void, he started to panic. However, he quickly sensed that Chu Fengmian's aura was much weaker than before, and immediately reacted. Letting out a long cry, he attacked. The trident in the East Forest Ocean Emperor's hand emitted a boundless radiance. All the radiance gathered at a single point and shot towards Chu Fengmian. The East Forest Ocean Emperor was someone who had experienced countless life and death battles. Naturally, he could tell at a glance that Chu Fengmian's spirit force was exhausted. This was his weakest moment, and the best time for him to kill Chu Fengmian. The moment the East Forest Ocean Emperor attacked, a huge phantom of the sea god appeared behind him. This phantom of the sea god was a secret technique that the East Forest Ocean Emperor had activated by burning his bloodline power. Once this secret technique was activated, it would affect the strength of the future East Forest Ocean Emperor. However, in order to kill Chu Fengmian in one blow, the East Forest Ocean Emperor could not care less. He used all of his trump cards to seize this opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian. It wasn't just the East Forest Ocean Emperor. The other two Sea Sacrifice Sect Deva Realm Patriarchs reacted just a bit slower than the East Forest Ocean Emperor. However, before the East Forest Ocean Emperor had made his move, the two of them had made their move as well. Each of them displayed their most powerful killing move. However, the two of them did not intend to kill Chu Fengmian. Instead, they used a kind of array formation. Waves of spiritual energy turned into monstrous waves that swept towards Chu Fengmian. Each wave was a part of the array formation. Thousands of waves rushed towards Chu Fengmian from all directions, sealing off his surroundings. It was one of the great arrays of the Sea Sacrifice Sect, the Thousand Waves Immortal Trapping Array. The words "immortal trapping" meant that even a sky human realm expert would be trapped in this array formation. The myriad waves immortal trapping formation, which the two of them worked together, firmly locked Chu Fengmian in one place. Chu Fengmian had nowhere to retreat, and all his escape routes were cut off. Chu Fengmian's strength was now extremely weak. The two of them were not worried about whether the East Forest Ocean Emperor was a match for Chu Fengmian, but that Chu Fengmian would escape. The space of the common life Great Seal had been moved to the depths of the void by Chu Fengmian. Even if the three of them tore the space of the common life Great Seal, they would not be able to escape. This time, there was no way out for the three of them. They had no other choice but to kill Chu Fengmian. Since they were going to kill him, they had to kill him in one blow. If Chu Fengmian escaped this time, they would be the ones to die when Chu Fengmian recovered his strength. The cooperation of the three of them was flawless. The moment the 1,000 Waves immortal trapping array enveloped Chu Fengmian, the East Forest Ocean Emperor's trident slashed down at the same time. The power of the trident was already in front of Chu Fengmian. "You want to kill me?" Chu Fengmian sneered when he saw the joint attack of the three approaching him. Suddenly, his hand moved and the firmament Great Seal appeared in his hand. He smashed it towards the trident-wielding East Forest Ocean Emperor. At the same time, countless immortal stones flew out from the surroundings of the firmament Great Seal. There were a total of 100 immortal stones that enveloped the Great Seal. Suddenly, all the immortal stones shattered and turned into incomparably pure immortal chi that poured into the Great Seal. These immortal stones were obtained by Chu Fengmian from the Guardian Elder's empty ring. When Chu Fengmian killed the Guardian Elder, he also obtained the Guardian Elder's empty ring. From the Guardian Elder's empty ring, Chu Fengmian obtained more than 200 immortal stones. The Guardian Elder had always been responsible for guarding the sacrificial lake. He had a very high status in the Sea Sacrifice sect and had accumulated a large amount of wealth in his empty ring. The Great Seal of Life could be activated with immortal chi. It could burn immortal stones and was even more powerful when activated with immortal chi. This time, although Chu Fengmian had used the Tianlong change to move the Great Seal of Life to the depths of the void and consumed a lot of immortal chi, Chu Fengmian wasn't worried. He still had his greatest trump card, which was the Great Seal of Life. Although Chu Fengmian had consumed a lot of immortal chi, he had enough immortal stones to activate the Great Seal of Life. Genius 1 second. Remember this site. Mobile version website. Chapter 1993. After burning 100 immortal stones, the immortal power of the common life seal suddenly grew, even more than when the East Forest Ocean Emperor had burned 200 immortal stones. Although the East Forest Ocean Emperor had burned a lot of immortal stones, he didn't know how to activate the common life seal. He hadn't made the seal recognize him as its master, and had only controlled it with brute force. Now that Chu Fengmian knew the common life emperor art, he had condensed a strand of common life emperor force. This strand of emperor force fused with the immortal power to activate the common life seal, allowing its power to reach its peak. Ancient inscriptions appeared on the common life seal. These ancient inscriptions seemed to record the stories of the common life emperor from an extremely ancient era, before the destruction of the primordial era. Every single inscription contained an inconceivable power. The more inscriptions that appeared, the more powerful the power of the life seal became. Rumble. Before the common life seal fell, its aura alone had the power to suppress heaven and earth. In the entire space, the East Forest Ocean Emperor and the other two patriarchs of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect slowed down a lot. Their figures were about to be suppressed by the power of the life seal. Beside Chu Fengmian, the countless waves of the 10,000 Waves immortal trapping formation that surrounded Chu Fengmian were all shattered by this power. The common life seal, the immortal weapon of the once invincible common life emperor, was finally able to display its true power at this moment. Rumble. In the center of the space, the common life seal collided with the trident in the hands of the East Forest Ocean Emperor. The power of the aftermath was enough to destroy a continent. How terrifying was this power! At the core of this power, even a true sky realm expert would be shaken to death. Even the East Forest Ocean Emperor, who was wielding the trident, spat out a large mouthful of blood. He couldn't even hold the trident steadily. His hands were shaking from the impact of this power. Bam! The trident was sent flying from the Donglin Ocean Emperor's hand. At a glance, one could see that cracks had appeared on the trident. The trident was not a spiritual artifact or a half-immortal artifact. Instead, it was a true immortal artifact. However, when the Life Grand Seal collided with it, cracks began to appear on it. Immortal weapons were divided into strong and weak ones, and the strongest ones were the extreme immortal weapons. Although the common life seal wasn't an extreme immortal weapon, it was second only to extreme immortal weapons. The common life emperor was an invincible overlord during the primordial era. His strength even surpassed that of an immortal emperor. The common life seal had long transformed under his power. Although the trident was also an immortal armament, it was unable to contend against the great life seal in terms of strength. Not only was it knocked flying, but countless cracks had also appeared on it. Art of Ancient Emperor seizing the art of war. When Chu Fengmian saw the flying trident, he immediately used the Ancient Emperor's art of war to seize the trident. The trident was also an immortal weapon. Although Chu Fengmian had many spiritual weapons, including extreme immortal weapons like the Emperor's Jar and the Primordial Sword, he still didn't have a true immortal weapon. Even among Celestial Realm experts, immortal weapons were extremely rare. For example, although the two patriarchs of the Sea Sacrifice sect were experienced Celestial Realm experts, they didn't have an immortal weapon. Of course, Chu Fengmian wouldn't let go of the trident this time. He activated the Ancient Emperor's art of war, turning it into an invisible hand and grabbing at the trident. The trident had already recognized the East Forest Ocean Emperor as its master. When it sensed the Ancient Emperor's art of war, the trident let out a cry and erupted with power, trying to resist the Ancient Emperor's art of war. However, the East Forest Ocean Emperor had been seriously injured by the previous blow. He was powerless to activate the trident. No matter how hard the trident struggled, it was still caught by the invisible hand formed by the Ancient Emperor's art of war. When it fell into the invisible hand, the trident, an immortal weapon, was no longer able to resist and was grabbed by Chu Fengmian. However, the trident still had the mark of the East Forest Ocean Emperor and had recognized him as its master. Even if Chu Fengmian took the trident now, as long as the East Forest Ocean Emperor recovered his strength, he could easily take the trident back from Chu Fengmian. In order to make the trident an ownerless object, the mark of the East Forest Ocean Emperor must be erased. It was different from the Life Grand Seal. The East Forest Ocean Emperor had obtained the trident when he was young, and it had long since acknowledged him as its master. The trident was branded with the East Forest Ocean Emperor's mark, and it was indestructible. If it were an elite of the Celestial Realm, it would take at least a few months to completely erase the imprint of the East Forest Ocean Emperor on the trident. However, Chu Fengmian did not care. With a thought, the heaven-devouring power condensed at the tip of Chu Fengmian's finger. With a point of his finger, the heaven-devouring power was injected into the trident. The mark of the East Forest Ocean Emperor on the trident was indeed very troublesome for other Sky Realm powerhouses. However, it was nothing in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian controlled the heaven-devouring origin and activated the heaven-devouring secret technique. It was enough to devour the heavens, let alone the mark of the East Forest Ocean Emperor on the trident. Boom! The heaven-devouring power was injected into the trident and immediately activated. In almost an instant, 30% of the indestructible mark of the East Forest Ocean Emperor on the trident was erased. In this way, the mark of the East Forest Ocean Emperor on the trident would be completely erased and the trident would become an ownerless object. Exterminate all races. At this moment, an incomparably huge divine radiance bombarded from behind Chu Fengmian. Within this divine radiance, one could vaguely make out the shape of a trident. However, this trident was much more powerful, noble, and ancient than the trident that was an immortal artifact. It was the legendary trident of the Sea Clan's sea god. The trident appeared from the divine light, containing boundless killing intent as it slashed towards Chu Fengmian. This divine light appeared without a sound. It was impossible to tell when it had appeared. The two ancestors of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect had taken advantage of the moment when Chu Fengmian was erasing the mark of the East Forest Ocean Emperor on the trident to attack him. When the trident descended, it seemed that nothing in the world could resist it. Loading up next chapters. Chapter 1994. The 2C Sacrifice Sect ancestors had been hiding their strength, as if they were waiting for the right moment to strike. Now the opportunity had finally arrived. The moment Chu Fengmian obliterated the East Forest Ocean Emperor's mark on the trident suddenly descended and slashed at Chu Fengmian. Even Chu Fengmian didn't expect the 2C Sacrifice Sect ancestors to have such hidden strength. By the time Chu Fengmian reacted, the trident's tip was already less than a meter away from him. It was too late for him to dodge. Although Chu Fengmian was a little surprised, he didn't panic in the face of the trident's slash. His heart was incomparably calm. Suddenly, waves of power poured into Chu Fengmian's immortal true body. In Chu Fengmian's body, the 129,600 immortal crystals transformed into little people. As Chu Fengmian's spirit energy poured into them, they immediately shattered. 129,600 immortal crystals fused into Chu Fengmian's body. The immortal true body's power was urged to the extreme to resist the trident's tip. Boom! The moment the immortal true body's power was urged to the extreme, the trident's tip ruthlessly slashed at Chu Fengmian's body. Bam bam! Countless immortal crystals trembled madly. The 129,600 immortal crystals bore the full brunt of the trident's power. Chu Fengmian wanted to use his immortal true body to resist the trident's tip. At the same time, the divine tree in Chu Fengmian's body was awakened. Countless roots of the divine tree were rooted in Chu Fengmian's body, guarding it with all their might. No matter how the trident's tip tore and attacked, Chu Fengmian's body still stood there, unshakable. Sky-devouring secret technique. Completely obliterate. Not only was Chu Fengmian resisting the trident's slash, but he also unleashed the full power of the sky-devouring secret technique. The East Forest Ocean Emperor's mark on the trident was completely obliterated. Divine Tree. Devour. Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate to grab the trident and toss it to the divine tree for it to devour when the Donglin Sea Emperor's imprint was obliterated and it became an ownerless object. Although the trident was an immortal weapon, Chu Fengmian did not lack such a weapon. Hence, he decided to let the divine tree devour it. The divine tree in Chu Fengmian's body had also received tremendous benefits the moment Chu Fengmian stepped into the half-step celestial realm. Now, the divine tree was thousands of feet tall, and it was just missing an opportunity to take another step forward. This trident was a true immortal artifact, and it was the perfect opportunity. The trident was tossed to the side of the divine tree and was immediately enveloped by the power of the divine tree. Even though the trident was an immortal artifact, it was incapable of resisting the devouring power of the divine tree. Immediately, the power of the divine tree began to rise steadily. At the same time, the divine tree also became taller. The moment it devoured the trident, the size of the divine tree exceeded 10,000 feet. 10,000 feet was a bottleneck. The size of the divine tree exceeded 10,000 feet. It was as if a warrior had broken through a bottleneck. In an instant, its power skyrocketed countless times. The power of the Tree of God suddenly fused with the 129,600 immortal crystals in Chu Fengmian's body and fused together. The divine tree and the immortal crystals were two completely different powers. However, with the advancement of the divine tree, these two powers fused together and made Chu Fengmian's body countless times tougher, becoming indestructible. The trident's tip pierced into Chu Fengmian's body, but now it was wrapped by the immortal crystals, preventing the tip of the trident from going any further and damaging Chu Fengmian's body. Break for me! Chu Fengmian let out a long roar. The power of 129,600 immortal crystals was fully activated. Chu Fengmian's body became incomparably tall and indestructible. A tyrannical and boundless power swept through everything. Boom! Countless cracks appeared on the tip of the trident as it was swept by the boundless power. In the next moment, the entire trident was shattered into pieces. Chu Fengmian was unscathed after taking a blow from the trident. The trident was mercilessly shattered by Chu Fengmian. The 2C Sacrifice Sect Celestial Realm ancestors had found the best opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian in one fell swoop. In their opinion, once the tip of the trident fell, Chu Fengmian would be seriously injured, if not killed. This result was something that the two of them could never have imagined even in their dreams. Retreat. Run. The 2C Sacrifice Sect patriarchs trembled and retreated continuously, as if to escape from this space and into the depths of the void. The two of them would rather face the spatial storm outside than face Chu Fengmian. In a single breath, the two of them had traveled dozens of miles and disappeared without a trace. The 2C Sacrifice Sect patriarch's escape light was fast, but Chu Fengmian's escape light was even faster. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's escape light arrived in front of the 2C Sacrifice Sect patriarchs in a flash. Behind Chu Fengmian, countless sword chi flew out of the horizon sword case and condensed on the blade in Chu Fengmian's hand. Suddenly, the sword slashed down. Die! Puff! One of the C Sacrifice Sect patriarchs didn't even have time to block the sword. His body was penetrated by countless sword chi and exploded with a loud bang. His essence and blood didn't even have time to scatter in all directions. The heaven-devouring secret technique had appeared and turned into a huge black hole. All the essence and blood were mercilessly devoured by the heaven-devouring secret technique. Another Sky Realm expert had been killed by Chu Fengmian. The C Sacrifice Sect Patriarch's empty ring was also taken by Chu Fengmian. A total of more than 200 immortal stones were directly extracted by Chu Fengmian. The remaining C Sacrifice Sect Patriarch looked at Chu Fengmian with incomparable fear in his eyes. His body flickered repeatedly as he tried to escape from Chu Fengmian. However, the moment he tried to leave, Chu Fengmian suddenly grabbed him with his hand. The power of the primogenitor Jianwang gathered in Chu Fengmian's palm. The patriarch of the Sea Sacrifice Sect had only just fled a few hundred kilometers away when Chu Fengmian's hand grabbed him and brought him back. Chu Fengmian looked at the Sea Sacrifice Sect patriarch with an extremely cold gaze, and the sword in his hand fell again. However, at that moment an incomparably huge arm suddenly descended from the sky. End of chapter. Chapter 1995. The arm seemed to have crossed thousands of miles to reach the depths of the void. The distance of millions of miles was nothing in front of the owner of this arm. The might of this palm had crossed millions of miles and landed with a loud bang. Boom! As the incomparably huge arm suddenly descended, countless cracks appeared in the space formed by the Great Life Seal. It was directly pierced through by the arm. The space formed by the Life Great Seal was difficult to shake even if several Celestial Realm experts joined forces. But now it was actually pierced through by that arm. Even the power of the common people's Great Seal was unable to match up to that arm. What kind of expert is this? An immortal? Or even an immortal general? Chu Fengmian shuddered when he felt the power of this arm. The power of this arm was too tyrannical and terrifying to the extreme. This was not something an immortal in the first 3 levels of the Celestial Realm could do. The owner of this arm was definitely an immortal warrior, or even an immortal general. Among the countless experts in the Celestial Realm, he could be regarded as one of the best. Chu Fengmian originally wanted to kill the Donglin Ocean Emperor and the ancestor of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect together with a thunderous force. He didn't expect that someone would suddenly make a move at this time. The arm crossed a distance of tens of thousands of miles and entered the space, heading straight for Chu Fengmian. The target of the arm was Chu Fengmian. Ocean Emperor worship. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He didn't need to think to guess who the owner of the arm was. Ocean Emperor Worship, the strongest expert of the Songhai starfield, the oldest ancestor of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, and also the foundation of the sect. Chu Fengmian sealed the space with the Life Great Seal and moved the space to the depths of the void with the power of Ancestor Tianwang. He was worried that Ocean Emperor Worship would find out. But now that Chu Fengmian had killed the patriarch of the Sea Sacrifice sect, Emperor Worshipper was able to sense what was going on. Enraged, he sent a palm strike toward Chu Fengmian, intending to obliterate him completely. It's Ocean Emperor Worship. This man has committed a heinous crime. He stole the sacrificial lake. Unforgivable. Ocean Emperor, please take action and kill this brat. The ancestor of the Sea Sacrifice sect shouted as though he had seen his savior when he saw the descending arm. Master, please take action. Guardian Elder. Even Ancestor Ming too died at his hands. The East Forest Ocean Emperor shouted as well. Bastard. Upon hearing the words of the Sea Sacrificial Sect Patriarch and the East Forest Ocean Emperor, a thunderous roar echoed across the sky. This roar was filled with boundless fury, as if it wanted to incinerate everything. Boundless killing intent suddenly descended. An incomparably huge palm shrouded Chu Fengmian's head and slammed down. The power of this palm was simply enough to annihilate the space of the life mark along with Chu Fengmian. I was actually discovered at this time. Chu Fengmian frowned. If he had another half a minute, he could have killed the East Forest Ocean Emperor and the Poseidon Sect's Patriarch, taken all of their fortune, and fled without a trace. But at this critical moment the Ocean Emperor actually took action. Although Ocean Monarch Worship's body was still thousands of miles away, the arm was still countless times stronger than an ordinary Celestial Realm martial artist's attack. Tri-Sun Blazing Sword. Quadrangular Hurricane Sword. 9 Profound Sword Art. At that moment, Chu Fengmian also withdrew the 2 sword edges that he had prepared to slay the Patriarch of the Sea Sacrifice sect and injected sword intent into the 2-spirit sword. Countless sword techniques slashed towards the palm at the same time. Even Celestial Realm experts like the East Forest Ocean Emperor and the Guardian Elder would find it difficult to resist each of these sword art. However, when the palm swept down, it swept through everything. The swordsmanship was shattered into pieces before the palm. It didn't even have the slightest bit of resistance. The Ocean Emperor's strength was too strong, far surpassing Chu Fengmian's. Although Chu Fengmian could contend with and even kill immortals, he was still a Celestial Realm expert. But the Ocean Emperor was an immortal warrior, a terrifying existence in the immortal general realm. There were 9 levels of immortal realm, and the difference in strength between each realm was dozens of times greater. The Ocean Emperor's strength had reached such a terrifying level. Chu Fengmian understood that he was no match for the Ocean Monarch when he saw that his sword skills were unable to stop the palm strike from the Ocean Monarch. If Chu Fengmian couldn't resist the palm that had crossed thousands of miles, he would be killed on the spot. Spirit Stones. Burn. Life Seal. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and tossed out several hundred immortal stones. Chu Fengmian had just killed the Sea Sacrifice Sect Patriarch, so he took out all the immortal stones in his spatial ring. A total of over 300 immortal stones were ignited at the same time. Immortal force poured into the Life Seal, pushing its power to the extreme. Chu Fengmian held the Life Seal in his hand and clashed with the Ocean Emperor's palm. Bam bam! The collision of these 2 forces instantly caused the surrounding space created by the common people's Great Seal to explode. Chu Fengmian, the East Forest Ocean Emperor, and the others fell into the depths of the void. The Life Seal clashed with the palm countless times before finally stopping it. However, Chu Fengmian also paid a great price. The immortal force inside the Life Seal was completely depleted after the collision. It could be said that the wealth of more than 300 immortal stones had been burned in an instant and turned into power to withstand the attack of the palm. It was extremely extravagant. Even a sky-human powerhouse wouldn't be able to bear such an expensive price. Chu Fengmian had no other choice. Apart from burning the immortal stones and activating the life seal, he had no other means to contend with the Ocean Emperor. That palm was momentarily sent flying by the Life Great Seal. However, it soon returned with an even more tyrannical power. It smashed toward Chu Fengmian to kill him. Run! Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate. His figure flickered as he fled into the depths of the void. When facing the East Forest Ocean Emperor, Chu Fengmian still wanted to kill him. However, the Ocean Emperor's tyrannical strength was far from what Chu Fengmian could handle. If he didn't leave now, he would undoubtedly die. End of chapter. Chapter 1996. Chu Fengmian had used up all of his immortal stones to block the Ocean Monarch's palm strike. However, Chu Fengmian had to burn all the spirit stones in his body in order to barely stop the Ocean Monarch's attack. Chu Fengmian didn't dare to fight the monarch any longer. The monarch's strength far exceeded Chu Fengmian's. Even if Chu Fengmian summoned the Mad Dragon Emperor and joined forces, they still wouldn't be a match for the monarch. The gap between each of the 9 levels of the immortal realm was enormous. If the monarch was an immortal warrior, he wouldn't be inferior to 10 immortals. Moreover, Chu Fengmian could sense that the monarch's strength wasn't just at the immortal warrior realm. He might even be at the immortal general realm. Such an invincible expert wasn't someone Chu Fengmian could contend with. This arm could be said to have crossed tens of millions of miles to strike over, and it almost killed Chu Fengmian with a single palm. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian had used the power of Tianlong transformation to pull the life seal into the depths of the void, so as not to alarm the monarch. Although the monarch had discovered Chu Fengmian, his true body couldn't come immediately, giving Chu Fengmian a chance to escape. Chu Fengmian turned his head and looked at the East Forest Ocean Emperor and the remaining ancestor of the sea sacrifice sect with pity in his eyes. If Chu Fengmian could kill the East Forest Ocean Emperor and devour their blood essence, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. He might even reach the peak of the half-step celestial realm. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't stay any longer. Although the monarch's true body hadn't arrived yet, the monarch's monstrous arm could easily kill Chu Fengmian with its terrifying power. Space tearing. Chu Fengmian gathered the power of the ancestral sky dragon in his palm and suddenly tore open a passage in front of him. In the depths of the void, amidst the endless turbulence of the void, he forcibly tore open a passage. Chu Fengmian's figure flashed as he stepped into the passageway. In an instant, he disappeared from the void. He escaped. Chu Fengmian opened his eyes and looked around at the unfamiliar scenery. He had left the depths of the void and arrived at a remote corner of the Shanghai starfield. Chu Fengmian sensed that he had fled tens of millions of miles away. He could finally relax for the time being. He left the Shanghai star zone directly. Chu Fengmian's purpose in coming to the Shanghai starfield had been accomplished. Chu Fengmian's harvest in this trip to the Shanghai star zone was enormous. He had broken through to the half-step celestial realm, killed Lan Ming, seized the Xianjing bloodline, and seized the sword Dao totem from the Sea Sword sect. This time around, he had sneaked into the sacrificial lake and plundered wantonly. This time around, he had reaped a great harvest. Just the large amount of colored glaze water was a great fortune, not to mention that Chu Fengmian had seized the opportunity to seize a part of the 6 directions mysterious water and countless saint pills from the treasury of the sea sacrifice sect. The harvest this time could be said to be more than what Chu Fengmian had expected. Chu Fengmian would refine these saint pills one by one, and his strength would improve by leaps and bounds. Moreover, with a large amount of colored glaze water, Chu Fengmian could also dissolve the demonic will in the heart of the evil blood demon emperor and the absolute primordial sword. If these 2 treasures were used by Chu Fengmian, his strength would improve even more in the future. But now, Chu Fengmian still had to leave the Shanghai star zone and find an incomparably safe place to cultivate in seclusion. Only then could he transform these gains into his strength. After all, no matter how many fortuitous encounters he had, Chu Fengmian had to cultivate in seclusion to transform them into his strength. This time, Chu Fengmian had already gained a lot in the Shanghai Star Zone, but he had also provoked the two biggest behemoths in the Shanghai Star Zone, the Sea Sacrifice Sect and the Sea Sword Sect. It was too dangerous to continue to stay in the Shanghai Star Zone. Chu Fengmian observed the surroundings and prepared to leave the Shanghai Star Zone directly and return to the Daluotian Star Zone. As long as he could return to the Daluotian Star Zone, no matter how powerful the Worship Ocean Emperor was, he wouldn't be able to find traces of Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian could break through to the Celestial Realm and pass the Celestial Tribulation, his strength would undergo earth-shaking changes. It should be known that Chu Fengmian had only stepped into the half-step Celestial Realm, but his various fortuitous encounters had all undergone a transformation, and his strength had increased by more than 10 times. The benefits of stepping into the Celestial Realm were 10 times more than when he stepped into the half-step Celestial Realm. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the Celestial Realm, even if the Worship Ocean Emperor came looking for him in the future, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have to be afraid. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the Celestial Realm, it would be hard to say who would win in the future if he fought the Worship Ocean Emperor. As Chu Fengmian thought about it, he observed the surroundings, trying to figure out where he had come to. In order to escape, Chu Fengmian had directly torn the space apart, allowing him to cross thousands of miles in an instant. However, Chu Fengmian didn't know where he had landed. However, he was still surrounded by the sea, so Chu Fengmian could still be sure that he was still in the Shanghai Star Zone. However, he still needed to observe for a while to find out where he was. Chu Fengmian had killed Lan Ming and obtained his memories. Lan Ming's memories were much more than Hai Shirsi's. Lan Ming had been to the entire Shanghai Star Zone. Chu Fengmian looked at the surrounding sea and felt a sense of familiarity, as if there was a faint demonic intent. Although the demonic intent was extremely thin, Chu Fengmian could still feel it. This is the chaotic sea? The moment Chu Fengmian felt the demonic intent, he suddenly recognized the identity of the surrounding sea. There was only one sea in the Shanghai Star Zone that had demonic intent, and that was the chaotic sea. The chaotic sea was a well-known sea in the Shanghai Star Zone. Chu Fengmian had once come to the chaotic sea in order to destroy the glittering Jewel Dynasty. He had even gone deep into the chaotic sea and encountered the Yuan Whale Emperor. He had almost died at the hands of the Yuan Whale Emperor. Chu Fengmian was no stranger to the chaotic sea. However, what surprised him was that he had coincidentally arrived at the chaotic sea after tearing the space apart. Chu Fengmian was now at the edge of the chaotic sea, so the demonic intent in the sea was extremely thin. Chu Fengmian didn't notice it at first. As long as he went deeper, he would truly enter the chaotic sea. Boom! The space around Chu Fengmian was suddenly shattered. End of chapter. Chapter 1997. Chu Fengmian's expression changed drastically when he sensed the space around him shattering. He scanned the area with his spiritual consciousness and saw a huge arm in the depths of the shattered space. It broke through countless space and bombarded Chu Fengmian's direction. Chu Fengmian naturally knew the origin of this arm. It was the arm of the sacrificial ocean monarch. Chu Fengmian didn't expect that the sacrificial ocean monarch would want to kill him so badly. Even though Chu Fengmian had escaped tens of thousands of miles away, the sacrificial ocean monarch was still chasing after him. This time, he had sneaked into the sacrificial lake and plundered a large amount of sacred elixirs and glazed clean water accumulated over countless years. Then, Chu Fengmian killed 2 celestial realm ancestors of the Sea Sacrificial Sect. The Sea Sacrificial Sect couldn't bear such a huge loss. For tens of thousands of years, the Sea Sacrificial Sect had been the only overlord of the Shanghai Starfield. The Sacrificial Ocean Monarch had no intention of letting Chu Fengmian go. This time, He was determined to kill Chu Fengmian even if he had to chase him all the way. Behind this incomparably huge arm, a figure could be clearly seen. This figure wasn't the sacrificial ocean monarch's incarnation. It wasn't a condensation of his power, but his real body. This time, the sacrificial ocean monarch didn't hesitate to leave the sea sacrificial sect in order to kill Chu Fengmian. The sacrificial ocean monarch usually cultivated in seclusion in the sea sacrificial sect and hadn't left for tens of thousands of years. But this time, the sacrificial ocean monarch was truly enraged. That was why his real body came out to kill Chu Fengmian. Damn it! You can't hide from the sacrificial ocean monarch in the Songhai starfield. This time, Chu Fengmian tore through space and traversed tens of thousands of miles. It took him some time to determine where he was, but the sacrificial ocean monarch's pursuit came so quickly. The entire Songhai starfield seemed to be under the sacrificial ocean monarch's control. No matter where Chu Fengmian fled, the sacrificial ocean monarch would be able to hunt him down. Kid, you dared to sneak into the sacrificial lake today. Do you think you can leave alive? Where is the face of the sea sacrificial sect? You can run to the ends of the earth. You won't be able to escape from this emperor's palm. The ocean monarch looked at Chu Fengmian coldly and said in an indifferent tone, "Now, kneel down and repent for your sins. Considering that you have some talent, I can spare your life as a servant of the sea sacrifice sect. If you still want to resist, then the only path left for you is death." Really? Make me a slave? Even the heavenly Tao can't do it. You don't have the ability. Chu Fengmian sneered. His body suddenly turned into a beam of light and flew towards the depths of the chaotic ocean. Now that ocean monarch was chasing after him, Chu Fengmian had no choice but to run. The entire Songhai star system was under the control of the ocean monarch. Even if Chu Fengmian tried to escape by tearing space apart, it would be pointless. The ocean monarch would be able to hunt him down in an instant. Every time Chu Fengmian tore space, he had to use Tianlong's power. Tearing space consumed a lot of power, and Chu Fengmian couldn't keep tearing space. There was only one place in the entire Songhai star system that the ocean monarch couldn't control. It was the chaotic ocean. The history of the chaotic ocean was much older than the history of the sea sacrifice sect. According to the countless ancient books of the sea sacrifice sect, they were extremely afraid of the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian had killed Lan Ming and obtained his memories. According to Lan Ming's memories, even the sea sacrifice sect was extremely afraid of the chaotic ocean. They didn't allow their disciples to enter the chaotic ocean at will. It could be said that there were many secrets in the chaotic ocean. Even sky humans didn't dare to set foot in it. The last time Chu Fengmian entered the depths of the chaotic ocean, he had encountered the terrifying Origin Whale Emperor. The Origin Whale Emperor that Chu Fengmian had discovered was only a small part of the chaotic ocean's secret. There were many more secrets in the chaotic ocean. As Chu Fengmian's strength increased, Chu Fengmian could sense that the chaotic ocean was filled with secrets the last time he entered it. Chu Fengmian had no choice but to enter the chaotic ocean if he wanted to escape from the hands of the ocean monarch and avoid being hunted down. Chu Fengmian understood everything in an instant. Without hesitation, he flew towards the center of the chaotic ocean. The chaotic ocean? The ocean monarch's figure traversed countless spaces and followed closely behind Chu Fengmian. The ocean monarch looked like a middle-aged man in a golden robe. He didn't look like an ancestor at all. However, the ocean monarch was an immortal warrior or even an immortal general. He had a long lifespan. Therefore, even though he had lived for tens of thousands of years, he still looked very young. Looking at Chu Fengmian's flying light flying into the chaotic ocean, his eyes were filled with caution. Clearly, there was an existence in the chaotic ocean that even he was afraid of. Even so, the ocean monarch still followed Chu Fengmian closely into the chaotic ocean despite his apprehension. Chu Fengmian's infiltration of the sacrificial lake had disgraced the ocean's sacrificial sect. If they didn't kill Chu Fengmian, How could the Ocean Sacrificial Sect establish themselves in the Songhai star zone? The Ocean Monarch's escape light rushed into the chaotic ocean. He was even faster than Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian controlled the power of the ancestral sky dragon, and his comprehension of the Tao of space was extremely high. Although Chu Fengmian was only in the realm of half-step celestial realm, his escape light was much faster than celestial realm powerhouses. However, the Ocean Monarch's escape light was even faster than Chu Fengmian's. In a few breaths, the Ocean Monarch's escape light had almost caught up with Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian probed with his spiritual consciousness and saw this clearly. Damn it! The Ocean Monarch is definitely an immortal general. He has condensed immortal power. Chu Fengmian could clearly feel that the power radiating from the Ocean Monarch was no longer spiritual power, but immortal power. Even the first two levels of the Celestial Realm, Immortal Realm, and Immortal Soldier Realm experts' power was still spiritual power, not immortal power. Only those who had stepped into the third level of the Celestial Realm, the Immortal General Realm, could truly transform their spiritual power into immortal power. This was a qualitative change. The difference between spiritual power and immortal power was like the difference between heaven and earth. For example, the common people's Great Seal couldn't even unleash 1% of its original power when activated with spiritual energy. Only by using celestial energy could one barely activate it. Any immortal art, secret art, or escape light would be completely different when activated with immortal power. End of chapter. Chapter 1998. Chu Fengmian had guessed that the Emperor was either at the peak of the Immortal Warrior realm or at the Immortal General realm. However, Chu Fengmian hadn't been able to determine the Emperor's true strength since he'd been facing the Emperor's attacks from tens of thousands of miles away. Now that he'd seen the Emperor's true body and the raging spiritual energy around him, Chu Fengmian was certain that the Emperor was a terrifying immortal general. Only immortal generals could condense their energy and convert their spiritual energy into immortal energy. Chu Fengmian was strong enough to fight even an immortal warrior. Even if he couldn't beat them, he could still escape unscathed. However, it was a different story if he faced an immortal general. Just like the Ocean Emperor in front of him. Using his immortal power, Ocean Monarch's speed far exceeded Chu Fengmian's. Chu Fengmian couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Chu Fengmian wasn't most confident in his strength, but his escape skills. He'd grasped the power of Primogenitor Tianlong and tore through space to transform into Primogenitor Tianlong. With these two methods, Chu Fengmian had evaded countless dangers. Last time, Chu Fengmian snuck into the Seasward sect to seize the Sword Dao Totem. It was precisely because of this that he was able to escape the pursuit of the Waterfront Sea Emperor. But right now, all of these methods were useless in the face of the Ocean Monarch. Chu Fengmian's most confident escape light was easily surpassed by the Ocean Monarch. There's still some distance to the center of the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with anxiety. Once the Emperor caught up to him, it'd be his death. Chu Fengmian had to burn all of his immortal stones in order to block the life seal, even though the Ocean Monarch's spirit energy had crossed a great distance to unleash a palm strike. Now, Chu Fengmian had to face the Emperor's true body, who was countless times more terrifying than the arm from before. Life seal. Chu Fengmian roared and infused all of his life force into the life seal, driving it towards the Ocean Monarch who was chasing after him. Now that Chu Fengmian had exhausted all his spirit stones, he had no more spirit stones to burn to activate the Great Seal of Life. The Great Seal of Life was Chu Fengmian's strongest attack. However, Emperor Jihai didn't seem to care about the life seal at all. He waved his hand and the life seal was sent flying back to Chu Fengmian's hand. Chu Fengmian's full-powered attack had been neutralized by the Emperor with a wave of his hand. This was the terror of the Emperor. All of his strength was immortal power, so any attack he made was equivalent to Chu Fengmian's immortal power burning. His casual attack had earth-shattering power. You can make the life seal recognize you as its master? It is said that this is the immortal item of the Common People Emperor. Only the successor of the Common People Emperor, someone who understands the Common People Emperor art, can make the Common People Great Seal recognize him as its master. I didn't expect you to know the Common People Emperor art. The Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian curiously after sending the seal flying. The East Forest Sea Emperor had once shown the mortal life seal to the Reverence Ocean Emperor in an attempt to make it recognize him as its master. However, all his methods had been useless. Only someone who understood the mortal life Emperor incantation would be able to make the seal recognize him as its master and unleash its full power. Now that the seal had recognized Chu Fengmian as its master, it meant that he knew the life Emperor art. Not bad. You don't look like someone from the Shanghai Starfield. Looks like you have an extraordinary background and a lot of opportunities. It's a pity to kill you. I'll imprison you and make you my slave to make up for the loss of the Oceanic Sacrifice sect. The Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian and said casually. From his tone, it was as if Chu Fengmian's fate was in his hands. Damn it! Hearing the words of the Ocean Monarch, Chu Fengmian was infuriated. However, Chu Fengmian knew that he was no match for the Ocean Monarch even if he gave it his all. A half-step celestial going against an immortal warrior expert. Even the most monstrous genius in history couldn't do that. Chu Fengmian's life seal couldn't shake the Ocean Monarch at all. He couldn't even slow down the Ocean Monarch's escape light. Everything was useless now. No need to talk nonsense with you. If we keep chasing you, we'll be in trouble once we reach the depths of the chaotic ocean. Get over here. As he spoke, he sped up and arrived beside Chu Fengmian in the blink of an eye. His incomparably huge palm reached out to grab Chu Fengmian. The Emperor was 100 meters tall and his palm was even bigger than Chu Fengmian's. He wanted to grab Chu Fengmian in his palm. Chu Fengmian felt as if all the good fortune he'd had was about to be taken away from him when the Ocean Emperor reached out to grab him. The Mortal Emperor Jar, Life Emperor Seal, Ancestral Dragon Paragon Sword, Titanic K Godly Sword, and even the Divine Tree in his body were all trembling, on the verge of flying out of his body. The Ancient Emperor's Art of War. What the Emperor was using was the Ancient Emperor's Art of War. The Ocean Monarch could also see that Chu Fengmian's strength was based on his countless adventures. That was why he was able to kill a Celestial Realm expert and even escape from the Ocean Monarch's hands when he was only a half-step Celestial Realm expert. After taking Chu Fengmian's spirit treasures and fortuitous encounters, Chu Fengmian was no more than an ant before him, a toothless tiger. However, the power unleashed by the Ocean Monarch and Chu Fengmian were completely different even though they were both the Ancient Emperor's Art of War. The same secret technique would have a different effect when used by different people. Moreover, Emperor Raging Ocean was an immortal general with immortal energy. The true power of the Ancient Emperor's Art of Seizing War was the true power of the Ancient Emperor's Art of Seizing War. In ancient times, the art of war was feared by countless powerhouses. Of course, it wasn't as strong as Chu Fengmian's version. Emperor Sea-worshipping was using the Ancient Emperor's Art of Seizing War to seize all of Chu Fengmian's good fortune and treasures. Sky Devourer's Secret Art. Devour the heavens. Immortal power. Devour. At this critical moment, Chu Fengmian suddenly let out a long roar. His body merged with the heaven-devouring secret technique and turned into a huge black hole. Genius memorized this address in 1 second. Mobile reading website Chapter 1999. The Art of Seizing the Ancient Emperor's Art of War used immortal power to form a palm. As it reached for Chu Fengmian, the sky-devouring secret technique devoured much of its immortal power. The sky-devouring secret technique had the power to devour the heavens. Now that the art of seizing the Ancient Emperor's Art of War was only a secret technique, the sky-devouring secret technique easily devoured it. The sky-devouring secret technique activated and devoured the power of the art of seizing the ancient emperor's art of war, greatly reducing the pressure on Chu Fengmian. However, that wasn't Chu Fengmian's goal. Chu Fengmian's goal was the immortal power Ocean Monarch had used to activate the art of seizing the ancient emperor's art of war. The sky-devouring secret technique could devour everything in the heavens, including immortal power. Waves of pure immortal power poured into Chu Fengmian's body with the sky-devouring secret technique. All of the immortal power flowed into Chu Fengmian's 129,600 immortal crystals. 1/3 of the 129,600 immortal crystals had transformed after absorbing immortal power from the battle between Chu Fengmian and Lan Ming. The remaining 2/3 were still in their original state. Ocean Monarch was using the art of seizing the ancient emperor's art of war to seize Chu Fengmian's countless fortuitous encounters. Chu Fengmian also seized the opportunity to use the sky-devouring secret technique to devour the immortal power contained in the art of seizing the ancient emperor's art of war. Immortal power was devoured by the sky-devouring secret technique and poured into Chu Fengmian's body. It was divided and devoured by the remaining immortal crystals. In the blink of an eye, the immortal power equivalent to 100 immortal stones was devoured by the sky-devouring secret technique. More than 10,000 immortal crystals were upgraded after devouring immortal power. 40% of the immortal crystals in Chu Fengmian's body had been upgraded. The upgrade of these immortal crystals also meant that Chu Fengmian's strength was increasing. The bloodline of the sky-devouring beast? Ocean Monarch observed the black hole vortex Chu Fengmian had transformed into. With his experience, he immediately recognized it as the bloodline of the sky-devouring beast. Only the sky-devouring secret technique activated by the bloodline of the sky-devouring beast could devour his immortal power. Reverent Ocean Monarch immediately saw through Chu Fengmian's intention to use the heaven-devouring mystic art to devour his immortal energy. It's true that your bloodline is strong, but if you want to devour my power, you're dreaming. Jihai Monarch sneered. His figure flashed as he sent another palm strike at Chu Fengmian. This palm descended from the sky with a power that could shake heaven and earth. Chu Fengmian, who was enveloped by this palm, did not even have the time to react before the might of this palm landed ruthlessly on the black hole formed by the sky-devouring secret technique. The heaven-devouring secret skill had the power to devour the heavens. However, Chu Fengmian was not a true heaven-devouring beast. His power was not that invincible. The power of this palm had far exceeded the endurance of the sky-devouring secret technique. The black hole formed by the sky-devouring secret technique was instantly shattered, and Chu Fengmian's body was sent flying. Countless cracks appeared on the 60% of the immortal crystals that had yet to be upgraded. These undying crystals that hadn't evolved couldn't withstand the attacks of the worship Ocean Emperor. The 60% of undying crystals that hadn't evolved were all destroyed mercilessly by the worship Ocean Emperor's palm. Only the remaining 40%, which had been upgraded by devouring immortal energy, could barely withstand the power of the Ocean Monarch's palm. Even if Chu Fengmian went all out, he still couldn't contend with the worship Ocean Emperor. This was a hopeless situation. The worship Ocean Emperor showed no mercy. After the palm strike, he suddenly gathered immortal power and used the ancient emperor's art of seizing war. Chu Fengmian had taken the brunt of the palm strike and was gravely injured. He couldn't even mobilize the power of his bloodline. The worship Ocean Emperor seized this opportunity to use the ancient emperor's art of seizing war again. This time, Chu Fengmian didn't even have the strength to resist. The spirit treasures in his body were on the verge of leaving his body and flying toward Ocean Monarch Chu Fengmian. Many of the spiritual weapons on Chu Fengmian's body had been with him for a long time and were already closely related to his strength. But now they were unable to resist the ancient emperor's art of war and were about to be taken away. Roar! At this critical moment, a deep roar that shook the heavens and earth suddenly rang out. This roar came from the depths of the chaotic ocean. Previously, when Chu Fengmian heard this roar, his entire body trembled in fear. However, when he heard this roar this time, it was as if Chu Fengmian had grasped onto his last life-saving straw. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw a colossal creature 10,000 feet long swimming out from the depths of the chaotic ocean. It was the Origin Whale Emperor. Chu Fengmian had rushed into the chaotic ocean to use the Origin Whale Emperor to escape the pursuit of the Worship Ocean Emperor. Although Chu Fengmian was the Origin Whale Emperor's enemy, the Worship Ocean Emperor was also the Origin Whale Emperor's enemy. Once they stepped into the depths of the chaotic ocean, all living things would become the Origin Whale Emperor's enemy. The energy fluctuations generated by the battle between Chu Fengmian and the Worship Ocean Emperor had awakened the Origin Whale Emperor from his slumber. Chu Fengmian could sense that the Origin Whale Emperor's power was on par with the Worship Ocean Emperor. The Origin Whale Emperor roared furiously when he sensed the aura of Chu Fengmian and the Worship Ocean Emperor. His colossal body moved and a towering wave swept over. Chu Fengmian had seen the power of this wave before. Even a sky human realm elite would be smashed to pieces by this wave. Damn it! The Worship Ocean Emperor's face darkened when he saw the Origin Whale Emperor. He was unwilling to enter the depths of the chaotic ocean because he was wary of many existences in the chaotic ocean. The Origin Whale Emperor was one of those existences that he was wary of. There were countless experts hiding in the chaotic ocean, like countless demonic sections. Many people who had committed all kinds of evil deeds in the Songhai Star Zone, or who were enemies of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, were hiding in the chaotic ocean. Among these people, there were Sky Human Realm Elite. With the help of demonic intent in the chaotic ocean, they were even stronger than the East Forest Ocean Emperor and the Waterfront Sword Ocean Emperor. Therefore, even the Ocean Emperor, who was a Sky Human Realm Elite, was unwilling to enter the chaotic ocean. The Origin Whale Emperor was an absolute overlord among the countless experts in the chaotic ocean. No one dared to provoke him. The Origin Whale Emperor had always been in a deep slumber in the eye of the chaotic ocean. The last time Chu Fengmian had accidentally intruded, he had awakened the Origin Whale Emperor and infuriated the Origin Whale Emperor. This time, the Origin Whale Emperor was even more furious when he sensed the battle between Chu Fengmian and the Worship Ocean Emperor. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and the Worship Ocean Emperor. End of chapter. Chapter 2000. The power of this huge wave was dozens of times stronger than the huge wave that Yuan Whale Emperor had unleashed against Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was nothing more than an ant in the eyes of the Origin Whale Emperor when he barged into the eye of the sea. He didn't take him seriously at all. That was how Chu Fengmian managed to escape from the Origin Whale Emperor. But this time, the Origin Whale Emperor was furious when he sensed Chu Fengmian and the Reverent Ocean Monarch. Neither Chu Fengmian nor the Reverent Ocean Monarch could withstand the power of this wave. If the stalemate continued, both of them would perish together. The Reverent Ocean Monarch's face darkened when he saw the incoming wave. He had captured Chu Fengmian, and this was the best opportunity to subdue him. However, the arrival of the Yuan Whale Emperor had ruined all his plans. If he continued to be entangled with Chu Fengmian, he would only end up perishing together with Chu Fengmian. Damn it! After finally capturing Chu Fengmian, the Ocean Monarch was extremely unwilling to let him go. However, he also didn't want to die with Chu Fengmian in the hands of the Yuan Whale Monarch. The Reverent Ocean Monarch's expression changed drastically when he saw the approaching wave. He made a decision and retreated continuously. He channeled his immortal power and unleashed countless defensive secret techniques to protect his body. However, as the Ocean Emperor retreated, he suddenly split off a portion of his power and sent it crashing down on Chu Fengmian's divine wonder. Chu Fengmian had just escaped and was suppressed by the immortal power. He was trapped on the spot and couldn't dodge the incoming wave. The Reverent Ocean Monarch didn't want to let Chu Fengmian go even at the last moment. His original intention was to capture Chu Fengmian alive and make up for the loss of the sacrificial lake. Now that the Yuan Whale Emperor had come out of nowhere, the Ocean Monarch's plan was ruined. However, the Ocean Monarch didn't intend to let Chu Fengmian go. When he retreated, he suppressed Chu Fengmian. He wanted Chu Fengmian to die in the hands of the Yuan Whale Emperor. Not good. Chu Fengmian unleashed his full strength when he saw the incoming wave. However, his body was suppressed by the power of the Ocean Monarch, and he couldn't move at all. Even though the Ocean Monarch had only used a small portion of his power, Chu Fengmian still couldn't resist the suppression of his immortal force. The difference in cultivation between Chu Fengmian and Ocean Monarch was so great that Chu Fengmian had no chance to fight back. In the blink of an eye, the wave arrived in front of Chu Fengmian. Undying true body, bless me with the power of the tree of God. Xian Jing, ancestor Tianlong, heaven-devouring beast, shadow of the three beasts. With nowhere to run, Chu Fengmian could only try his best to resist. The power of the immortal true body and the tree of God were pushed to the extreme, strengthening Chu Fengmian's physical strength to the extreme. At the same time, the shadows of the three innate divine beasts appeared behind Chu Fengmian. They represented the power of the three innate divine beasts in Chu Fengmian's bloodline. Even if Chu Fengmian unleashed his full strength, he still couldn't shake off the suppression of the Ocean Monarch, nor could he resist the Origin Whale Monarch. However, Chu Fengmian had no choice but to unleash his full strength to fight for a chance at survival. Waves that contained boundless terror swept over. Before the waves, everything in the heavens would be crushed alive. Even the cultivators of the celestial realm would not be able to withstand the power of the wave. Although the Origin Whale Monarch didn't command, his strength surpassed the Ocean Monarch's through instinct alone. One could imagine the power of his furious attack. The Ocean Monarch had already retreated to the edge of the chaotic ocean. He knew that the Origin Whale Monarch could only move in the chaotic ocean. As long as he left the chaotic ocean, he would be safe. How many fortuitous encounters did this kid have? 3 innate divine beasts' bloodlines appeared in his body, and he even condensed the immortal true body at the half-step celestial realm. The Ocean Monarch looked in the direction of Chu Fengmian from afar, his eyes filled with pity. If he could capture Chu Fengmian, he would be able to take all of Chu Fengmian's treasures for himself. It should be known that the bloodlines of the 3 innate divine beasts were extremely beneficial to the experts in the celestial realm. It was a great opportunity, but now the Origin Whale Monarch had taken action. The Ocean Monarch didn't dare to fight against the Origin Whale Monarch. He could only retreat as far as he could. He looked in the direction of the chaotic ocean. Boom! The power of the wave swept over Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian felt that his body was going to be crushed in an instant. Even the immortal true body couldn't resist the power of the wave. Chu Fengmian's physical body was crushed and rebuilt time and time again. Almost in an instant, Chu Fengmian's strength was exhausted. Just as Chu Fengmian couldn't hold on any longer, the power of the wave suddenly disappeared. Chu Fengmian couldn't understand this sudden turn of events. The power of the ocean waves could easily crush Chu Fengmian. However, the Origin Whale Emperor had actually let Chu Fengmian off? Chu Fengmian didn't even have time to rejoice. An incomparably huge figure of a giant beast appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. It was the Origin Whale Monarch. The Origin Whale Monarch looked at Chu Fengmian, opened its bloody mouth and swallowed Chu Fengmian into its stomach. The Origin Whale Monarch didn't kill Chu Fengmian, but it didn't mean that it wanted to let Chu Fengmian go. It wanted to devour Chu Fengmian alive. The Origin Whale Emperor opened its huge mouth and devoured Ollie and Chu Fengmian without any ability to resist were swallowed into the Origin Whale Emperor's stomach. This scene was also clearly seen by Seaside Monarch. What a pity! The Ocean Monarch could only sigh. But now, Chu Fengmian had been swallowed by the Origin Whale Monarch. If he could capture Chu Fengmian and obtain the countless fortuitous encounters from Chu Fengmian, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. He might even be able to break through to a higher realm. One should know that the three types of innate divine beast bloodlines, the divine tree, and the immortal true body were all fortuitous encounters that even the ocean monarch hadn't obtained. But this time, the origin whale monarch had benefited from all of them. After swallowing Chu Fengmian, the origin whale monarch glanced at the ocean monarch. Seeing that the ocean monarch had already left the chaotic ocean, the origin whale monarch let out a long howl, turned around, and returned to the eye of the chaotic ocean to continue his slumber. Genius 1 second. Remember this address. Mobile version website. Chapter 2001. Chu Fengmian only felt a massive suction force pulling him into the belly of the origin whale emperor. By the time he came back to his senses, all he could see was darkness before his eyes. Although it was pitch black, Chu Fengmian knew where he was right now. In the belly of the origin whale emperor. The origin whale emperor originally had the opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian directly. However, it didn't do so. Instead, it swallowed Chu Fengmian into its belly. Chu Fengmian hadn't expected this. However, the origin whale emperor hadn't swallowed Chu Fengmian to save him. Chu Fengmian could clearly sense the hostility of the origin whale emperor. Before Chu Fengmian could relax, an overwhelming demonic intent suddenly drifted towards Chu Fengmian from the belly of the origin whale emperor, trying to corrode him. Demonic intent. The body of the origin whale emperor was actually filled with demonic intent. It was like a demonic domain. No wonder the origin whale emperor has no intelligence or consciousness. It turns out that it has been corroded by the demonic intent. After sensing the overwhelming demonic intent, Chu Fengmian suddenly understood why the origin whale emperor didn't seem to have any intelligence at all. One had to know that the origin whale race was a tyrannical race that wasn't inferior to the ancestral Jianwang race. Their intelligence was extremely high, even surpassing that of humans. However, the origin whale emperor didn't seem to have any intelligence. Chu Fengmian had found it strange at first. But this time, when Chu Fengmian was swallowed into the Yuan whale emperor's stomach, Chu Fengmian understood. It turned out that the Yuan whale emperor was like the other Yuan whales in the chaotic ocean, completely corrupted and driven mad by the demonic will. Boundless demonic intent tried to corrode Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian suddenly flipped his palm, and a string of Buddhist beads appeared in his palm. This string of Buddhist beads emitted a dazzling Buddhist glow that illuminated Chu Fengmian's body. These were the Buddhist prayer beads that Chu Fengmian had obtained from the Buddhist temple of the Pure Land. Chu Fengmian didn't cultivate Buddhism, so these Buddhist prayer beads weren't very useful to him. Chu Fengmian rarely took them out and usually kept them in his spatial ring. However, these Buddhist treasures were the best means to restrain the demonic intent. The Buddhist prayer beads emitted boundless Buddhist light that instantly neutralized at least 50% of the demonic intent that was corroding Chu Fengmian. As for the remaining demonic intent, Chu Fengmian condensed his spiritual energy to prevent it from affecting him for the time being. This demonic will is a little strange. It actually wants to devour my strength? Chu Fengmian resisted the demonic will's corrosion and also split out a ball of energy to absorb a strand of demonic will. Chu Fengmian discovered that this demonic will wasn't trying to corrode Chu Fengmian, but was actually trying to devour Chu Fengmian's energy. In other words, the origin whale emperor had swallowed Chu Fengmian into its stomach in order to refine him alive. Xian 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 xian, xian's xian xianz's. Is a xian xian. Xing Xian's voice sounded in Chu Fengmian's mind. Chu Fengmian's mind became clearer when he heard this. The origin whale emperor had indeed wanted to kill Chu Fengmian. However, when Chu Fengmian unleashed his bloodline power to block the attack of the waves, the origin whale emperor suddenly changed its mind and devoured Chu Fengmian instead. The origin whale emperor was a demon immortal emperor who had inherited the Xian whale bloodline. The Xian whale bloodline was a great supplement to him. The purer the bloodline, the stronger the origin whale emperor would be in the future. The Origin Whale Emperor was eroded by the devil will and had fallen into madness, but he still retained his instincts. He knew that the Xian whale bloodline in Chu Fengmian's body was extremely useful to him, so he swallowed Chu Fengmian to devour his power. These devil intents were the method the Origin Whale Emperor used to devour Chu Fengmian. It was extremely difficult for Chu Fengmian to resist the devouring of the demonic will. Even though Chu Fengmian had divine veins, his recovery speed could not match the devouring speed of the demonic will. This was with the effect of the 10,000 thoughts Buddhist beads. Without the 10,000 thoughts Buddhist beads, Chu Fengmian's situation would be even more difficult. Chu Fengmian felt that he could resist the corrosion of the demonic will for a short period of time, but in the long run, Chu Fengmian would definitely be devoured by the demonic will and be trapped in the whale's belly. I have to find a chance to leave this whale's belly. Chu Fengmian circulated his spiritual power and tried to find a way to break out of the whale's belly. However, as soon as Chu Fengmian's spiritual power was released, it encountered a barrier formed by the demonic will. This barrier dissolved all of Chu Fengmian's power. Chu Fengmian's attacks were unable to move the barrier at all. Chu Fengmian's continuous attacks were unable to move the barrier at all. Why is there such a barrier in the Origin Whale Emperor's belly? Chu Fengmian frowned as he observed the barrier. Chu Fengmian could see that as long as he could break this barrier, he would be able to escape from the Origin Whale Emperor's belly. However, no matter how Chu Fengmian bombarded the barrier, he was unable to move it at all. Even when Chu Fengmian used the sky-devouring secret technique to devour it, he was still unable to gain anything. One should know that Chu Fengmian's sky-devouring secret technique could even devour the formation set up by a celestial realm expert. However, Chu Fengmian's sky-devouring secret technique was unable to do anything to the barrier in the Origin Whale Emperor's belly. Although this is the Origin Whale Emperor's belly, haven't you noticed that this place has already formed a world of its own? This is the Origin Whale Emperor's internal world. While Chu Fengmian was puzzled, Xing Xian appeared and said after observing the surroundings, "This Origin Whale is quite talented and has already formed an internal world. It's a pity that it has been corrupted by the demonic will. Otherwise, its strength would be even stronger." Internal world? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered when he heard this term. His expression changed abruptly as he recalled this term. The immortal Marquis realm has its own internal world? There were 9 levels of the immortal realm, and each level represented a different ability. The 3 levels of the celestial realm. The immortal realm allowed one to create a technique with a single thought. The immortal warrior realm allowed one to have an immortal body and immortal bones. The immortal general realm allowed one to gather immortal energy. The 4th level of the immortal realm surpassed the celestial realm and reached the next level, the immortal Marquis realm of the profound heaven realm. The immortal Marquis realm allowed one's body to form a world of its own. The Origin Whale Emperor has reached the profound heaven realm, the immortal Marquis realm? Chu Fengmian said in surprise. The 4th level of the immortal realm, the immortal Marquis realm surpassed the celestial realm and reached the profound heaven realm. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 2002. Although Chu Fengmian knew that the Origin Whale Emperor was terrifyingly strong and even the Ocean Worship Monarch was no match for him, he didn't expect the Origin Whale Emperor to have reached the profound heaven realm, the immortal Marquis realm. It could be said that the Ocean Worship Monarch was far inferior to the Origin Whale Emperor. It was no wonder that the Ocean Worship Monarch could only run away when he saw the Origin Whale Emperor. If the Origin Whale Emperor could leave the chaotic ocean, the strongest expert in the vast sea star field wouldn't be the Ocean Worship Monarch, but the Origin Whale Emperor. I'm actually in the Origin Whale Emperor's internal world? Chu Fengmian observed his surroundings with a frown. The Origin Whale Emperor had swallowed Chu Fengmian into his internal world in order to use the demonic will to devour Chu Fengmian. In a short time, Chu Fengmian could resist the demonic will with the help of the 1,000 chant Buddha beads and the recovery of his divine veins. However, the demonic will in the Origin Whale Emperor's internal world was endless. Chu Fengmian could resist it for a while, but not forever. Therefore, Chu Fengmian wanted to find a chance to leave the Origin Whale Emperor's stomach. But now that the Origin Whale Emperor had reached the immortal Marquis realm and formed his own internal world, it would be extremely difficult for Chu Fengmian to leave. This inner world was much sturdier than the space formed by the common people's Great Seal. Unlike the Life Great Seal, this internal world was supported by the Origin Whale Emperor's power. It could be said that Chu Fengmian's continuous attacks would be useless. Without external help, you won't have a chance to leave unless you reach the celestial realm. Xing Xian looked at Chu Fengmian and said calmly, "Reach the celestial realm." Chu Fengmian's face showed some helplessness. Chu Fengmian had indeed plundered a large number of divine elixir pills in the sacrificial lake. With so many divine elixir pills, it was indeed enough for other martial artists or demon gods to step into the celestial realm. As long as they cultivated diligently and refined all the divine elixir pills, it wouldn't be difficult for them to reach the celestial realm. But it was different for Chu Fengmian. The difficulty for Chu Fengmian to break through to the celestial realm was definitely 10,000 times, or even 100,000 times more difficult than ordinary martial artists and demon gods. It should be noted that Chu Fengmian had encountered many fortuitous encounters when he was at the half-step celestial being realm. He had refined the flying immortal pill, killed Lan Ming, seized his bloodline, and accumulated a large number of longing immortal stones to help Chu Fengmian step into the half-step celestial being realm. The difficulty of breaking through to the celestial realm was 10 times or even 100 times more difficult than the half-step celestial realm. Chu Fengmian had just stepped into the half-step celestial realm. Although Chu Fengmian had absorbed the quintessence blood of the 2 Deva patriarchs from the Seasturm sect, and had stabilized his cultivation base, he was still a long way from the Deva realm. Moreover, Chu Feng was currently sleeping in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor. He had to divert his energy to resist the devouring of the demonic intent at any moment. He simply had no time to cultivate, unless he was strong enough to resist this demonic will. Chu Fengmian was severely injured in the fight with the Ocean Monarch just now. 60% of his immortal crystals were shattered. Indeed, he needed to cultivate in seclusion to recover from his injuries. However, in this self-proclaimed world in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor, almost every corner was filled with demonic will. Chu Fengmian walked around and got the same result. As long as he was in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor, there was demonic will everywhere. There was no quiet place at all. Only by resisting the demonic will could Chu Fengmian cultivate in peace. The surrounding demonic intent is exactly the same as the demonic intent of the chaotic ocean. However, the Origin Whale Emperor has lived in the center of the chaotic ocean for too long. I wonder how long it has been for the demonic intent in its body to be so dense. Chu Fengmian walked in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor while observing the surrounding demonic will. He could tell that this demonic will was the demonic will of the chaotic ocean. He wondered what kind of demon was hiding in the chaotic ocean. The demonic will had eroded the entire ocean and turned it into the chaotic ocean. Gotcha! As Chu Fengmian walked, he suddenly stepped on something. The Origin Whale Emperor's abdomen was pitch black. Chu Fengmian couldn't see clearly what it was. When he bent down to take a look, he saw that it was a set of white bones. A set of white bones. It was unknown how long this skeleton had been there. The clothes on its body had long since rotted away. There was no trace of strength left, so Chu Fengmian didn't even notice its existence. Only when he bent down and got closer did he see that it was a human skeleton. This should be someone who was devoured by the Origin Whale Emperor. Chu Fengmian mumbled to himself. There wasn't a single trace of spiritual power left on this skeleton, but Chu Fengmian carefully observed it. On the white skeleton there were actually many green-blue lines. These blue lines were engraved on the bones. They were engraved with the power of the bones. They were not external forces but had become one with the bones. Immortal bones. What did the green-blue runes on it represent? They were immortal runes condensed from immortal energy. These immortal runes could be seen in some immortal treasures. The life seal also had such immortal runes. When the immortal runes appeared on the skeleton, it meant that the cultivator's body had been transformed into immortal bones. Immortal warrior realm, immortal body, immortal bones. The owner of this skeleton had been an immortal warrior when he was alive. He was much stronger than the Waterfront Sword Emperor and the East Forest Ocean Emperor. His immortal body had likely been devoured by the demonic will in the Origin Whale Emperor's belly. Chu Fengmian couldn't sense any spiritual energy from this skeleton. This immortal warrior had probably been swallowed by the Origin Whale Emperor. Just like what the Origin Whale Emperor had done to Chu Fengmian, the Origin Whale Emperor had used the demonic intent in his body to devour this expert bit by bit. The expert's flesh, blood, and spiritual energy had all been devoured, leaving only the immortal bones that had lost their power. Even immortal warrior realm powerhouses are trapped in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but smile wryly at the sight of this immortal skeleton. An immortal warrior expert couldn't leave after being devoured by the Origin Whale Emperor, and could only be devoured alive by the demonic will. No matter how strong a cultivator's spiritual energy was, there would be a day when it ran out. Chu Fengmian had the protection of the 10,000 Thoughts Buddhist beads and the recovery of his divine veins. It was already very difficult for him to resist the demonic will, let alone these people. This immortal warrior might be stronger than Chu Fengmian, but he probably wasn't as good as Chu Fengmian when it came to dealing with the demonic will. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Mobile reading website M. Chapter 2003. This immortal bone has already lost its spiritual power. It's useless now. Chu Fengmian glanced at the immortal bone and lost interest. He continued walking in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor. The spatial ring of the owner of this immortal bone had long disappeared. It must have been completely devoured by the demonic intent. No spiritual power could escape the devouring of the demonic intent in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor. This immortal bone was left behind because it no longer had any spiritual power. Chu Fengmian continued onward, and before long, another set of skeletons came into view. This skeleton was different from that of a human. Chu Fengmian could tell that it was the skeleton of a marine race expert. The marine race reigned supreme in the vast sea's star field. They had far more experts than humans. The owners of these skeletons must have come to the chaotic seas to explore. They must have provoked the Origin Whale Emperor and been mercilessly devoured by it. It was the skeleton of an expert. Although it hadn't transformed into an immortal bone, Chu Fengmian could tell that it was at least the skeleton of an immortal. Chu Fengmian continued walking and saw 2 more skeletons. These 2 skeletons were still there. They were also the skeletons of celestial realm experts. The world in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor wasn't big. Chu Fengmian finished walking in a short while and found a total of 4 skeletons. There were 4 skeletons in the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor, all of them celestial realm experts. To the Origin Whale Emperor, demonic immortals who hadn't reached the celestial realm didn't even have the right to be devoured. They could be killed at will. When the Origin Whale Emperor had first encountered Chu Fengmian, it had also wanted to kill Chu Fengmian. However, it had changed its mind and swallowed Chu Fengmian after seeing the mysterious whale bloodline in Chu Fengmian's body. It seems that once you fall into the belly of the Origin Whale Emperor, you'll definitely die. Chu Fengmian laughed bitterly when he saw the 4 skeletons, especially the immortal bone. Even an immortal warrior couldn't escape from the Prime Whale Emperor's belly. This was enough to prove how difficult it was to break out of the world inside the Prime Whale Emperor's belly. It's indeed extremely difficult to leave the internal world of an immortal marquis. At the very least, it's impossible for you to break it before you reach the celestial realm. Xing Xian also spoke. However, this Yuan Whale Emperor is different from an ordinary immortal marquis. It has already sunk into madness and has lost its intelligence. This internal world is only activated by instinct. It's easier to escape from the internal world of Yuan Whale Emperor than from the internal world of a real immortal marquis. If the Origin Whale Emperor were to fight with someone else and use its power, the defense of this inner world would weaken. At that time, you would have a chance to break out. Wait until the Yuan Whale Emperor fights with the others, then we'll have a chance. Chu Fengmian pondered. He knew that Xing Xian's words made sense. The defense of the Yuan Whale Emperor was, in fact, the condensation of its power. If the Yuan Whale Emperor were to fight with a strong opponent, it would have to use its full power. At that time, the defense of this internal world would weaken. At that time, Chu Fengmian would be able to break out of this internal world and escape. That being said, it wouldn't be easy for the Yuan Whale Emperor to fight with a strong opponent. The Yuan Whale Emperor was the overlord of the chaotic ocean. Every expert in the vast sea-star field knew of his illustrious name. No one was willing to provoke the Yuan Whale Emperor. Chu Fengmian was forced into a corner by the ocean monarch, which was why he rushed into the chaotic ocean. He wanted to use the Yuan Whale Emperor to escape from the ocean monarch's pursuit. Chu Fengmian's plan succeeded, but he was also trapped in the belly of the Yuan Whale Emperor, unable to leave. Only by finding a way to restrain these demonic intents can I cultivate in peace, recover my strength, and wait for an opportunity. Chu Fengmian was extremely calm. The more desperate the situation was, the calmer he had to be. Chu Fengmian had been through countless life and death battles. Even if he was trapped in a desperate situation, Chu Fengmian had to remain calm. When he was chased by the ocean monarch, Chu Fengmian's situation was even more dangerous than when he was in the belly of the Yuan Whale Emperor. Although Chu Fengmian had to face the endless devouring of the demonic intents in the belly of the Yuan Whale Emperor, Chu Fengmian could still withstand it for a short period of time. His life wouldn't be in danger. When Chu Fengmian was being chased by the ocean monarch, he could have died at the hands of the ocean monarch if he wasn't careful. Moreover, it wasn't as if Chu Fengmian had no chance of escaping. The situation wasn't too bad. However, Chu Fengmian had to think of a way to restrain the devouring of the demonic intent. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to recover from his injuries. Sky Devouring Secret Technique. Devour. Chu Fengmian quietly operated the Sky Devouring Secret Technique and devoured the surrounding demonic intent. A large amount of demonic intents were devoured by the Sky Devouring Secret Technique, but the surrounding demonic intents didn't decrease in the slightest. The demonic intents in the belly of the Yuan Whale Emperor were simply endless. Chu Fengmian operated the Sky Devouring Secret Technique for a few minutes before giving up. It was meaningless to continue devouring. It was impossible for Chu Fengmian to devour all the demonic intents in the belly of the Yuan Whale Emperor. Using the Sky Devouring Secret Technique consumed a large amount of spiritual energy. If it was outside, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have cared. But now, Chu Fengmian was in the belly of the Yuan Whale Emperor and had to use his spiritual energy to resist the corrosion of the demonic intents. The recovery speed of his divine veins couldn't keep up with the speed of consumption. Consuming a large amount of spiritual energy at this time was no different from courting death. The demonic intents here are almost endless. What should I do? Chu Fengmian frowned as he pondered. There was no way to retreat. No matter where he was in the belly of the Yuan Whale Emperor, it was filled with demonic intents. It was impossible to find a place without demonic intent. It was even more impossible to dissolve and devour the demonic intent. The demonic intents were almost endless. Even if Chu Fengmian operated the Sky Devouring Secret Technique with all his might, he might not be able to devour all the demonic intents in a year. And in less than a year, Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy would be exhausted to death. The demonic intents didn't seem to be fatal, but they were incomparably difficult to deal with. No one could think of a way to deal with them. Demonic intents, demonic intents. Chu Fengmian's mind was thinking about this. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. A beating heart appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Mobile reading website